Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This is for UFC Vegas 101. It's a new year, new us, same crew. We got producer Jared on the sticks. Cody Saftik is on the line. I'm not sure if you guys saw it on social media or on Cody's old YouTube channel, the CJ Saftik, where you have the Mixed Martial Madness. It's now the Bookie Beatdown channel, doing a little bit more content for regional promotions, plan to do like a UFC show. Cody filled them in on some of the deets of that. Links in the description for all this as well.
Yeah, so essentially we've always had the same goal, which is give the show, Dogger Pass or Bookie Beatdown, whatever it was called at that given time, give it away to the fans for free. We never want to charge anybody for picks. We never want to be those guys, and still don't want to be those guys. But yeah, at some point you're just doing that one show every week, and it's just a UFC show. And then I know that there's a demand for more coverage, but also just there's an itch deep inside of me to do more stuff, right? So instead of always chasing down the sponsors, and shout out to Coolbet, they've come in with an unbelievable offer and they're definitely supporting this show, but just extra shoulder content and then your contract's up and then you're chasing some other sponsor. The easiest thing seemed to do to go to Patreon. So yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of fun things planned out over on the Patreon side of things, but basically you watch the UFC show, that's great, right? But there's always other organizations going on, whether it be there's an LFA on the Friday night, whether it be there's a One Championship on the Friday night, whether it be there's a Fury FC on the Sunday, whether it be there's a Ryzen or an Octagon MMA or a KSW. Those are all major organizations outside the UFC. Of course, Bellator, PFL, those. We generally never cover those on Dogger Pass. So we've decided to create Patreon account so that we can start previewing some of those B-level promotions, but also do UFC recaps, do post weigh-in thoughts, do a prop show. It kind of just gives us a lot more flexibility to make more content if that's something that you'd be interested in. So we've been doing this show for free for the last 10 years, and the support we've gotten from the fans is largely the reason that we're still going. If you consider yourself a supporter and a fan of the show, then yeah, I mean, we'd love to have you come over and kind of build a community there where we can be a lot more interactive with people, and your voice is not just kind of getting lost in that space of that sea that is Twitter or social media in general. So listen, I'm excited about it. 2024 was a down year for me in the sense that I had 2 kids and I got married and I bought a house, like and there's just yes, yeah, but I mean all that stuff's like life stuff, right? It's like, what are you passionate about? And I'm passionate about talking about fights and then doing it once a week. It's cool. The fact that I get to talk with my buddy Paul Shaughnessy once a week, it's cool. But I want to get back to telling you the greasy stories and doing mixed martial madnesses, and all of that stuff takes time and resources and effort. And as much as I love doing it for free, trust me, that's not the biggest issue. The older you get, now you start having to dedicate. I want to be a great father too. My goal was always be the best capper. Now I'm conflicted, which I want to be the best father. And how can you do both? But 2025 is my year, man. I plan to try to balance both. So of course, if you guys got any ideas or there's anything you'd like to see, live Q&A once a week, something where we have, other guys come on the show and have a bit of a debate show. Listen, I'm open for ideas, but I think the main thing is we go to Patreon, we build that community there, one step at a time. I'm not expecting it to explode overnight. Just I know that if the quality of our work continues to be good, people continue to jump on board, the support's always been there. We're not asking for a life-changing amount of money, just enough to, just add resources to it, better camera equipment, more flexible schedule, ability to add more shows, ability to pay other guys like Clint McLean. I'd love to have Clint on, ability to pay him to have a little show of his own. Build the community, but it's going to start with me and Paul, as it always has, and we just got to get this ball rolling. So appreciate to anybody that drops by, and if you're not in a spot right now where you can't support, that's okay too. Always going to give you the Dogger Pass show for free. That's our gift to the public for just the years of having our backs. It's just all this extra stuff. If you want to be hardcore, if you want to go that extra level, we want to offer you that platform that you can join on board over there. So yeah, again, excited for what the future holds, Paul.
Well said, Cody. Well said. And for the people who can't afford it or are not interested, this show right here brought to you by. Oh my gosh!
We've had so many sponsors, Paul.
I got so many. Sponsors. I have it all literally littered all over me. We've had a lot of sponsors over the years. No, Coolbet's been absolutely awesome with us. I'm actually going down to Costa Rica at the end of the month, January 27th to February 3rd, for the Coolbet Costa Rica poker tournament. I'm going down there as like a brand ambassador. Going to be in this 100K guaranteed tournament and doing a whole bunch of fun stuff. So absolutely love them over there. Promo code DOGGERPASS still works. You get a match up to $200 on your first deposit. 3x rollover there. So, bet $600 on that $200 deposit, and then the money's free to yours, free to withdraw, everything like that. Been an account holder there for a long time. It's easy to get withdrawals and everything. Like very, very. They advertise themselves as the most transparent sports book, and they really are. They're easy to work with, and we wouldn't lead you astray on that front whatsoever. But yeah, for the Patreon stuff, if you're interested in wanting more, the link is in the description for that. We're going to be building it out, and it's going to get bigger and better, and really, by this time next year, hopefully it's a whole new world over there. But we're kind of starting a little bit slow. Just, figuring out what works, what the people want, everything like that. But yeah, rest assured, this show isn't going anywhere. So if all that other stuff isn't for you, Dogger Pass, Wednesdays, sometimes Tuesdays, when like Cody's got something else to do, he's got to go over the horse racing track or something. It's coming to you every single week. There's a UFC card. So pitter patter, let's get at her. We got the main event of UFC Vegas 101. Amanda Ribas taking on Mackenzie Dern, minus 200 for Ribas. Dern can be had for plus 167 at coolbet.com. Who do you like here, Codes?
Yeah, how fitting, right? It's the UFC's big return. They've been off for 3 weeks. The fight fans are itching to get back at it. And the UFC gives you a classic fight night from the Apex with a shitty women's MMA main event. Back to our old groove, Paul Shaughnessy. How it feels, so good. Yeah, listen, if you're a CF dot model guy like Pat Mayo, there's obviously value in Mackenzie Dern. Personally, I don't like the minus 200 on Ribas, but I do feel like Ribas gets the job done. Probably a good live betting situation as well. Mackenzie Dern seems to be live or die by her ability to get these fights to the ground. And yeah, she's been working a lot on her wrestling and her ability to get the fight down consistently. It just feels like she kind of sputters out in doing it in all 3 rounds. You see a lot of these fights, the Marina Rodriguez fight, the Angela Hill fight, the Amanda Lemos fight. She gets these fights to the ground. She gets on top of her opponent. She threatens with a submission. She's just not locking it in. Once the fight returns to the feet, she's not shooting another takedown. She's not shooting a third takedown. She's not chain wrestling. She's not pushing the action. And for someone that's so vaunted on the ground, if you need to get a quick submission as soon as the fight hits the ground, that's great. But Dern's not submitted anybody in over 3 years now. So these fights are, in fact, hitting the ground. It's that if she can't get a quick submission, the best she can do is bank in a round. If you win a round, that's great. In a 3-round fight, you're going to need 2 of them. In a 5-round fight, you're going to need 3 of them. And the longer the fights go, I feel like that's where she starts to have these mental lapses. She has fought 5 rounds 3 times in her career. I believe she's lost all 3 of them. No, sorry, she beat Angela Hill in a 5-rounder. But then she lost to Yao Jianan, and she lost to Marina Rodriguez. And both of those fights, you do see the longer it goes, that's when some of that damage starts to get compounded on her. Her striking, work in progress. Obviously, she does got some natural power in that right hand, but she overextends herself whenever she's reaching for her opponents. She'll come in hyper-aggressive, swinging big leather, but all it is to just try to land one big shot, like a chopping overhand right, not even a duck under, just double underhooks, and then peel her opponent to the ground. I don't know that there's enough substance there over the course of 5 rounds. When I look at Amanda Ribas, she's obviously flawed in her own right, but one thing I like about her is defensively not sound. Doesn't move her head, walks straight on a line, but she's constantly marching forward. She's very hyper-aggressive. She's looking to land. She herself has some pretty good power behind her punches as well, and it's that ability, I hope, to stuff more often than not the takedowns, keep this fight standing. She'll beat up Dern. Dern's been... Here's the difference. Amanda Ribas been knocked out twice, right? She got knocked out by Macy Barber with those nasty elbows standing in the second round. Just absolute beatdown. And then she got knocked out by Marina Rodriguez. Won the first round, got chin checked in the second round. So in some instances, she's got some durability issues. But that's just because she's not blocking herself. She's walking right into the fire time and time again. Dern, meanwhile, Dern's also been TKO'd. This is the difference. When Dern goes down, she just looks like she's mentally quitting on herself. Her fight with Jessica Andrade, 4 knockdowns before the ref eventually waved that thing off. But it's every time she hits the ground, She just looks like she's not defending herself or she doesn't want to be there. She eventually crawls back up, gets dropped again, and then it just becomes complacent with hitting the deck over and over again. Her very next fight against Amanda Lemos, she got dropped in the second round. First round takes Amanda Lemos down right off the hop, like 90 seconds into the round. Spends almost 3 minutes of top control on Lemos and wins the first round. Second round, she gets hit with a clean shot, and just the way she hits the deck, holds her face, and turns over. A lot of referees probably just wave that thing off. Lemos hit her a few times, got weary of I don't really want to be on the ground with her, and let her back up. That allowed Dern to work her way back into the fight, but ultimately loses the second and third round. Got a takedown in the third round as well, but the damage is towards Lemos, who's landing the better shots. That's Dern's problem. So even though Dern's got some wild power in that right hand and could clip Ribas, Ribas marches Dern down and lands some of those shots. She's going to cause that self-doubt. If you can get her self-doubting herself, then rounds 2, 3, 4, 5 become a lot easier. The best way to probably approach this one, though, I do say this, is live bet situation. I say that because the last fight for Ribas, we've seen her go 5 rounds, which is good, against Rose Namajunas. She won rounds 3 and 5 against Rose Namajunas, so cardio checked out. Ability to fight in those later rounds checked out, landed some good shots, got 4 takedowns over Rose, and on paper only got taken down once. But in actuality, got taken about 3 times because she pulls guard. Like, if you shoot on her, she tries to hip throw you and just falls onto the ground. Whenever Rose would get on top of her, Rose was way better on the ground. In fact, Rose got a lot more control time and was able to just capitalize on these small mistakes that Ribas was doing. If Ribas goes out there and tries to judo hip toss Mackenzie Dern, it's a bad idea because you're probably going to end up on your back with Dern on top of you. Not saying an immediate submission materializes, but you're going to give up round control time and probably drop a round or two. By rounds 3, 4, and 5, that's when Dern's going to be a lot more desperate. The takedowns won't necessarily be there for her, and I feel like you'll have a Ribas that's a lot more dialed in, realizes, stop trying the hip toss, realizes, stop trying to drag her on top of you, and just sprawl and brawls her and gets the job done. But the first 2 rounds could be greasy because she may in fact pull guard or just end up with Mackenzie Dern on top of her. So after 2 rounds, you may be looking at Mackenzie Dern as the favorite and getting plus money on Ribas. At the very least, a lot closer to even money, which is where I think this thing probably should be lined up. Both of them have a path to victory. Ribas needs to keep it standing, land those bigger shots, cause that self-doubt. Mackenzie Dern needs to force the scrambles, take her to the ground, get on top, take her back, whatever, neutralize her, and then hopefully keep it up for the course of 5 rounds. I'm leaning towards Ribas, but this minus 200 price tag in a first main event of the year, I'm not digging it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I echo a lot of the same points that you have on this fight. Obviously, they fought before. I think Mackenzie Dern is in a better space now than she was back then. There was always some whispers about her not taking her training completely seriously, trying to.
She's been kicked out of 3 gyms and she had 2 divorces. So I'm not saying she's the problem, but at some point you got to look in the mirror and see what is the problem.
I was trying to say it really, really nicely, but yeah, it seemed like I don't know, maybe she was trying to be more of an influencer than a fighter or something like that. She just didn't seem to be. She was missing weight and stuff like that back in those days. She definitely seems to be much more focused in her career. Physically, she's been in better shape. The wrestling is coming along, but it's anytime I watch those exchanges of wrestling, it's just it looks pretty rudimentary. Everyone knows where she wants this fight to take place. And when she gets it down there, my God, it's super, super fast. Her ability to transition to a very, very dangerous submission attempt. So if she gets this fight to the mat early, Ribas could be in a lot of trouble. But yeah, they fought before. As I said, 5 years ago, a lot has changed. But, I'm sure Ribas has improved on her own takedown defense. Her own wrestling has improved. So who has improved more? No idea. But facts are facts. Mackenzie Dern went 1 for 6 on takedowns in that, 0 for 6 on takedown attempts in that fight. She has a couple, just absolute clubbing, overhand right type of shots that she's landed over the course of her career where we were all kind of shocked when it happened. She definitely Dern throws with some heat for sure. It's an outlier possibility that could happen. I'm just trying to think of the ways that Dern wins this fight. But I'm with you. I think that Amanda Ribas keeps this standing. She's more well-rounded. She's been bouncing around from 125 to 115. So this being at 115, you're going to have full strength, full capabilities, everything like that for Ribas. I think she's the rightful favorite. Am I excited about minus 200 and tying my entire, my mortgage to this? Absolutely not. But luckily, there's 14 fights on this card, Cody. So don't have to get too invested in the women's main event here. We got Santiago Ponzinibbio taking on Carlston Harris. Close to a straight pick 'em, but Coolbet's got him at minus 124 for the Pons right now, plus 102 for Harris. Like the matchmaking at the very least here. Both of these guys are pretty long in the tooth. Pons has been through a lot more wars and probably has endured more damage in his tenure. But yeah, I mean, I think at this stage in their careers, both of them are kind of flawed. They're, Ponzinibbio for a period of time there, he was kind of like the dark horse in the division, that people thought that this guy was like the guy who wasn't in a title picture, but he could get there, and time kind of passed him by. It hasn't really been all that pretty in the last, 4 years. He's really only managed to get wins over Miguel Beza, and he got the knockout in second round against Alex Morono there. But it hasn't been all that pretty. He has been mostly somewhat durable. There's a little bit of flaws kind of showing up in that. Carlston Harris, on the other hand, it's like his stand-up game, really not all that impressive. Not enough volume in most of his fights. Has a crafty submission game if he's able to get it to the ground, but doesn't have the greatest offensive wrestling. I think it's probably a pretty properly priced fight. I'm going to lean towards the Harris side here with the slight plus money. I think I'd be more interested in playing an under 2.5 at minus 120 if I was going to play this. I haven't bet anything on this fight yet, but Harris will be my pick, and the under is my preferred way to play it. What about you?
I got the under 2.5, but I'm going to go with Santiago Ponzinibbio. It is a coin flip fight. The odds makers got it matched up or lined up exactly probably where it should be. Basically a near even money type of situation. Both guys have the capability of winning, but I think someone's getting absolutely torched in either scenario. Ponzinibbio, he's 38 years old, but man, this guy's been through the ringer. And keep in mind, he was on a 7-fight winning streak, right? He main events UFC in Argentina. First time going to Argentina. He's the main event. He beats Neil Magny. It extends his win streak to 7 straight. And then he got a knee injury. The knee injury turned into a staph infection. The staph infection almost killed him. Then he took 3 years off. And since he's come back to the UFC, he's 2-5 in his next 7 fights. So he goes from a 7-fight winning streak 2-5 over his next 7. He's obviously not the guy he used to be. His athleticism, his explosiveness, his ability to kind of take some of that damage. I will give him one thing. It wasn't like he's all the way shot to bits. He's had some okay performances. But the Jeff Neal fight, he took a lot of damage. His fight with Miguel Beza, he allowed Miguel Beza to hit him 104 times. His fight with Michel Prazeres, he got hit 110 times. And even though he won the Beza fight and lost split decisions to Michel Pereira and Jeff Neal, which that aged extremely well, it's the 300 significant strikes that he absorbs in those 3 fights that I think have kind of just left him a little bit vulnerable. His fight with Alex Morono, he gets dropped. He throws the sloppiest spinning back fist at the end of the first round, gets clipped with a short right hand and hits the deck, round ends. But ends up winning the fight, but Morono gave him everything he could handle. And keep in mind, Alex Morono stepped in for Robbie Lawler on 4 days' notice, and the fight was at 180 pounds because Morono was not in shape. And Morono gave him everything he could handle. And he follows up that by getting knocked out by Kevin Holland, and then his fight with Muslim Salikov, he's super gun shy in there. So betting him with your hard-earned money is going to be a bit of a stretch at this stage in the game, year 2025. Because he's just not that hyper-aggressive guy. He can't take the near the level of damage that he used to be. He's not as quick as he used to be. He's just, there's clear aggression happening from him all the way around. But in this case that he's fighting Carlston Harris, I think that it's actually kind of a winnable fight for him and a favorable fight for him. Carlston Harris also, as you mentioned, he's no spring chicken, Paul. He's a bit of an older fighter himself. 5 career losses. He's been knocked out 3 times. And it's not like he's losing to bad guys, don't get me wrong, but his last loss before signing with the UFC against Gerard El Hawaii gets knocked down in the first round. His fight with with Shavkat Rakhmonov, no one's going to hold it against him, but he gets knocked down in the first round. Then his last time out against Chaos Williams got tons of power, but Williams hadn't knocked anybody out in like 3 years, and Williams knocks him out in the first round. When you watch him fight, he's so stiff standing. He doesn't have a right hand. It's a chop. He chops this right hand. He's got God-given power. If he touches you, it's lights out. But he ain't setting it up at all. His wrestling, as you mentioned, it's not terrible. The only fight you could really say it looked good in was the Jared Gooden fight, where he secured 5 takedowns. But he goes 0 for 4 in the first 4 takedown attempts, and then he really relies on Jared Gooden absolutely gassing out in the second round for him to be able to get the takedowns. When he is getting takedowns, yeah, he's got a nasty anaconda game, nasty guillotine choke. He loves the neck. But when he gets on top and he's in half guard or side control, he's not looking to move, man. He's looking to staple you down and rack up some control time. So you get these weird outlier performances, right? He knocks out Impa Kansanganai at 170. Impa now won $1 million at 205.
That looks good.
Yeah, it looks really good. It's like, damn, dude. Yeah, and then when you watch back that fight, it's a chopping little right hand that doesn't even like land full power, and you can see Impa like sway back, and then he lands a chopping little left hand, and boom, Impa hits the ground. So the guy is naturally very physically strong. Like, he touches you, it's going to be a world of problem, and that's why I like the under here. That Harris has 2 paths of finishing this thing. He can knock out Gente Boa. He doesn't even go by Gente Boa anymore. Apparently he's the Argentine dagger. That sounds so stupid, but just because it doesn't flow. Gente Boa, that's where it was at. And we liked Santiago Ponzinibbio. But I think his chin's vulnerable enough at this stage that if Carlston Harris chin checks him, yeah, it's over. If Harris could end up on the neck, then he also, poses the submission threat as well. You can choke out Jeremiah Wells unconscious. You can go ahead and get Santiago Ponzinibbio. Flip side to that is you've got a guy here in Carlston Harris that's been knocked out 3 times, is not super durable. All 3 of those knockout losses all occurred in the very first round. His fight with Jeremiah Wells, yeah, he did choke him unconscious, but he looks abysmal in the first 2 rounds, gets nothing done, gives up multiple takedowns, and has no get-up game. So he's a very flawed fighter, but he's just a dangerously flawed fighter. Against Ponzinibbio, it's that I don't think he's going to be able to walk back Ponzinibbio. I think that Santiago will largely be able to dictate the range and the pace. He's going to be able to put hands on Carlston Harris. He has a ton of power of his own. I think one of these guys is going to hit the mark and knock the other guy out. I just think that Ponzinibbio has probably got the better shot of hitting him first, using that timing, using that slight... He ain't as fast as he used to be, but still faster than Carlston Harris. Striking, way better than Carlston Harris. And though Santiago Ponzinibbio, 1 knock on him, I'll give... Last fight, Muslim Solikov, straight striker. Kevin Holland, pretty well straight striker. Alex Morono, the guy's pretty much a straight striker, for being honest with you.
Anybody you can wrestle in a while.
Yeah, like hardly anybody. You'd have to go back to the Neil Magny fight, which was 6 years ago, and Neil Magny only attempted 2 takedown attempts. So he's been largely match made against guys like Mike Perry that were just no takedown threat whatsoever. That if Carlston Harris does take him down, you could be in a really dicey situation really quickly. But the more tape you watch on Harris, the more you kind of analyze him, is that he really shows off that 29% takedown accuracy and that he's not a good wrestler. He needs to get hands clasped around your waist so that he can lift you up because he's not using technique. He's using muscle. He can out-muscle you. Ponzinibbio, they're not great wrestlers shooting on him, but whenever guys do shoot on him, they don't get very far, man. He just digs an underhook, drives you, pushes off, and then resets and gets back to work. His ability to land 100 significant strikes, if need be, would be great if this thing goes a little bit longer. His ability to land the KO power, that could be great because we can knock out Carlston Harris early, hopefully. Just that veteran savviness, the higher level of competition, training an American top team full-time the last number of years. Yeah, it's a 50-50 fight, and it's a greasy fight, but I would say Ponzinibbio has enough back class to edge this thing out and get the job done. Violence all over this one. -2 or under 2.5. But yeah, straight up pick, I got Gente Boa to get the job done and return to the win column.
I looked up Gente Boa.
Cool guy, right? Good guy. Isn't that what it
says? He is really a Portuguese phrase that translates to "he is really nice" or "nice." And you know what they say, Cody? Nice guys finish last. Argentinian dagger. I just hope someone gets finished in the first, inside the distance or optimally under 2.5 rounds. That's how I'm approaching this fight. We move on down to Cesar Almeida, your boy, taking on Abdul Razak Alhassan, -250 for Cesar. Alhassan +200. I mean, it's smart matchmaking in the sense that Alhassan doesn't really wrestle all that much. I realize that his nickname is Judo Thunder. He had a judo background.
Yeah,
he hasn't used much of it, but it's Ihor Potieria was able to get some takedowns last time out. And, like, frankly, I was heavy on the Almeida side and props and parlays. I mean, I lost some props in terms of, like, that fight getting finished because it was super, super ugly. And I think you tried to, like, talk me out of, like, a bunch of the situation. When I said he was Cody's boy, I was being facetious. Cesar Almeida was not impressive in that matchup. And frankly, I mean, you go to the Kopylov fight, it's listed as a split decision, but it's like that was not I was on Almeida's side there because I was like, Kopylov hasn't really tried to take down anybody. He's got an OV, but he doesn't really wrestle. It's just like that was the entire game plan. I struggle to bet this guy at minus 250 or as like a big favorite. I mean, after the Ihor fight, literally against anybody. At this price, because if Ihor's able to take you down 3 times, find some success, and you need a ref to step in and separate things when, frankly, you know, these things shouldn't have been separated. Like, he was jumping in there like 2 seconds after like they engaged in the clinch up against the fence and stuff like that. Like, it was like that ref had money on Cesar, and that night I was appreciative of that thing going on, but like, you know, you have to be kind of real about the situation. It's just like, if that ref isn't intermingling in this fight so much, we could have had a different result completely. I think this is a very clear dogger pass type of fight, Cody. I haven't pulled the trigger on Abdul Razak Alhassan yet. Wanted to talk to you, see where your head's at on this fight, but yeah, if I'm gonna have to pick a money line, it's gonna be that side. I did put some money on the under 1.5 here. It was like plus 145, I think, plus 125 now. 1.5 totals are always a little bit dicey, but like, I mean, if these guys just stand, sling, and there's no wrestling, no grappling, no cage control, somebody's probably going to sleep in the first 7.5 minutes. So don't love it as it gets shorter. 1.5, you know, they those can be a little bit dodgy at the best of times, but yeah, Alhassan's the pick for me. What about you?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of your sentiments. I don't like the under 1.5. I don't like any under 1.5s ever, but
Yep.
it could be a very violent fight. I just feel like if Abdul Razak Alhassan wants to win this fight, he needs to make it a lot less violent and a lot more control time happy. When you look at all of his wins, it's always first round knockout. You know, he knocks out Sabah Hamasi in 3 minutes. He goes out there against Nico Price. He just blows his head off in like 20 seconds. The guy's got huge power. But yeah, you just see the way he's so muscular, so well put together. He's 39 years old. Cardio's always been an issue for him. He needs to get that finish right away. But then there's a bit of a switch, right? He leaves Texas and moves over to Colorado, starts training at altitude. And again, for a 39-year-old fighter, he's Cameroonian. He's got excellent genetics, man. This guy's in fantastic shape. Don't think he's an old guy by any stretch. It's that leaving Texas and going to Colorado probably put a new emphasis on his cardio work. And if his cardio is okay, yeah, it's got to be a problem. You look at this fight with Claudio Ribeiro, the first round, he probably loses the first round. It's not exactly great. And then the second round, Claudio's huffing and puffing. Alhassan's not, and he knocks him out immediately into the second. His fight with Joe Pyfer, he gets dominated in the grappling, but again, makes it to the second. And then his last time against Cody Brunridge, he was looking awesome. First round, looking awesome, and then Brunridge takes the easy way out, as he always does, and quits and gets a no contest instead of a DQ. But I think Alhassan's a very dangerous guy that could get it done early. And then there's a part of me that's wondering, maybe this guy is starting to get seasoned. Because he used to be under 10 fights, hyper explosive, knock you out in 2 minutes or less. And yeah, he's got a judo base, but he never even uses it, Paul.
No.
At some point, I feel like he lost some fights. He won some fights. He changed training camps. He realized what he had to switch up. He's starting to fight a little bit more like a mature guy. Still got that reckless abandon type of spots, but there's some legitimate skill there. Now you look at his losses, okay? Joe Pyfer, who's in the top 10, right? Joaquin Buckley, who's kind of like top 5 right now. And his fight with Joaquin Buckley is a split decision, which was a really close fight. They're both gassed out. It's super sloppy, don't get me wrong, but like he gave Buckley a hell of a go. So he lost to Pyfer, he lost to Buckley, he lost to Jacob Malkoon, who I think the absolute world of. And he lost to Chaos Williams, who's pretty solid. So what I'm getting at is, yeah, it hasn't always been smooth sailing for him. He's gonna have to go through those trials and tribulations in his UFC tenure. But I feel like there is kind of a veteran presence to him now that he still is a live underdog if you can get him for underdog type money. And against Cesar Almeida, that's what he is, underdog, right? Almeida, you nailed this one 100%. He's just untrustworthy. He's 36 years old, former kickboxing champion. So coming over to the sport that late, picking up your ground game and your takedown defense, like you're just so far behind the eight ball. Not saying you can't do it, but to pick up something in your mid 30s when you've been kickboxing your entire life, it's difficult. Now people will say, "Oh, well, Alex Pereira did it." Well, first of all, Alex Pereira is a genetic freak, and also Alex Pereira did the one thing that a human being would have to do to get better at grappling very quickly. He went down to Glover's gym in the middle of Connecticut and got his ass kicked by a former world champion day in and day out. Being in the fire with Glover all the time created him. Cesar, he's not going in the fire, man. He wants to stay to the outside. He's got nice striking, slick striking, not a world class kickboxer in my opinion, but a solid kickboxer who experienced a lot of success in that art. But I just don't trust his wrestling or his takedown defense at all. I actually called the Kopylov fight over Alhassan in that I went on Instagram or Twitter and I seen Kopylov in the mountains of Dagestan with like 6 yoked up guys next to him. And I was like, boom, this guy's not an idiot. He's just going to go down and take Almeida down. Thing is that I didn't think it would happen that easy. And you mentioned that you had a bunch of money on Almeida, or you had money on Almeida. So you thought, how is this a split? You thought Almeida kicked his ass. I don't know about that, man. Cesar Almeida outlanded him like 58
On
to
what?
41
Which
on,
fight?
on Roman Kopylov.
No, no. I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was. I didn't say that at all.
I thought you said you had money on Caesar and you didn't think it was a split. It was kind of like, oh,
I thought Roman Kopylov won
all
unanimous.
3 rounds. Right.
I don't know if it was
I'm
all
saying,
3 rounds, but like I thought it was should have been unanimous.
Yeah.
I didn't see how you could give the 3rd round. I think it was off the top of my head. I couldn't see how you could give 2 rounds to Cesar, even though I had money on it. That's what I said.
Yeah. This is the way I seen it. The first round of that fight, by the numbers, and I had money on Kopylov. He was the underdog. I thought he would take him down. The first round, Cesar Almeida outlands him 23 to 18. The second round, Cesar Almeida outlands him 20 to 9. In the third round, Almeida still outlands him 15 to 14, albeit a lot closer. Almeida outlanded him in all 3 rounds. He did all the damage. Roman Kopylov's gassed out, shooting for the ugliest takedowns, and that's the problem. They were working. He's completely gassed out. He's not a wrestler to begin with. He's shooting way far on the outside, and you're otherwise kicking his ass in this round. And a desperate takedown from a near dead man who's experiencing kidney failure from exhaustion and dehydration, and he's still getting you down consistently. So his takedown defense is non-existent. Then you mentioned the Ihor fight. Ihor is also not a grappler
At all.
They're both strikers. Him and Kopylov. They're strikers that just realize, oh shit, why am I even doing this right now when I can just take him down? And then experiencing that success with taking him down, huge. Ihor damn near beat him, and Ihor had a referee that was standing him up after 5 seconds of action. So in the apex, with some crap referee, that there's no fans booing, there's nothing going on. They're just gonna let you die in there, man, or not die, but they're just gonna let you get wet blanketed and not come to your save. And when you're looking at a guy that's like a minus 300 favorite with Almeida, it's like, what? Why? On what basis? Well, he's a good striker. He's got a striking advantage. Fair, but I mean, Alhassan's got some killer power. If you just want to make this just a striking match, that guy can definitely land something. But beyond that, he's got the judo black belt. He took down Joaquin Buckley 3 times. He's been training at altitude. Maybe his cardio's not so bad. If he can land a couple decent shots, a couple eye-catching shots, take you down, steal the round, do it for 2 of the 3 rounds. Yeah, I can see him greasing this thing out. Almeida's lined like he's someone you want on your top ticket, or your secondary line on your top ticket. Out of here with that. He can't. He's a 36-year-old kickboxer who's shown that he can't grapple. I don't doubt his grappling is going to continuously to get better and better as he gains more experience in mixed martial arts. But again, it's just like how much time does he got left to get to a world-class level? Alhassan's certainly not world-class, but this is a guy that's fought in a lot of solid operators in the UFC and generally given an okay account for himself. So yeah, I think he's totally live. I'm not undecided if I'm going to pull the trigger yet on him as a dog selection because I got a few other ones. But Alhassan's definitely live. And at the very least, just either pass on Almeida, don't pay this kind of minus 300 price tag, or, keep a realistic expectation and drop him a little further down your parlays this week.
Yep. All right, we got Roman Kopylov taking on your boy. Now I'm not being facetious, Chris Curtis. Kopylov minus 250 favorite. Curtis can be out for plus 200. I saw some drama about this one. Apparently, there was like a couple guys who showed up. Was it Syndicate, where
Yeah.
Curtis and all of them. So a couple apparently some Russians showed up like I don't know 6 weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. They showed up, didn't really talk about much of like what they were up to and like where they were from, but like they let them in the gym. They were part of like Curtis's like training routine. And then Kopylov came into Vegas a month ago, and those guys stopped showing up to Syndicate and are like part of Kopylov's training camp in Vegas right now. So it's like he's basically sent scouts to Curtis's gym, didn't tell what was going on. That's what like Chris Curtis was alleging on social media, that like he basically sent like scouts into his camp to like get a read on your boy Chris Curtis. So Curtis was not too pleased whatsoever about the situation. He was kind of calling out Roman about that. Now, and on top of it, it's like Curtis, we always used to talk about like brick wall, can't take him down, yada yada yada. I mean, Brendan Allen took him down 6 times last time out there. I thought maybe I'm starting to think that maybe like, you know, people are figuring out how to get him to the mat. That's not to say that like Kopylov can't win this fight at range. It's just justifying the minus 250 here. Kopylov had a bad first fight, you know, obviously entering the UFC, and a lot of improvements have been getting made. I don't think he can grapple, of course, for the over the course of 15 minutes. This isn't Cesar Almeida here, but his striking is technical, powerful, strong enough that like, and he's got just a lot of different weapons. Not just, you know, Curtis is mostly a boxer, I would say. Kopylov is mixing in kicks and the full gamut of mixed martial arts. You know me, I love betting underdogs, and we've made some good money on Chris Curtis as an underdog. Maybe this is the time that he gets back on track, but I'm gonna side with Roman to get the job done here. What about you?
Yeah, I'm back on Action Man, baby. First of
Okay.
all, Action Man's the kind of guy you got to have good plus money associated with. He
Fair.
came into the UFC as a mid-30s journeyman type fighter, but it's all about value. His UFC debut against Phil Hawes, he's a plus 250 betting underdog. And you know me, I'm all over him. Phil Hawes is a bum. Action Man is got 40 fights under his belt, has fought tons of UFC veterans, has beaten tons of UFC veterans live, and it's plus 250. So he's kind of losing the first round to Hawes, and then boom, chin checks him, knocks him out. Boom, sweet. You probably wouldn't have loved it at even money, but at plus 250 it makes sense. His very next fight against Brandon Allen, the first time around, the first fight, he's a plus 280 underdog. So he just cashed a 250 ticket for us. We put that all back on him against Brandon Allen at an even better price tag of plus 280, and he knocks out Brandon Allen. Then what happens is, just like so many other popular fighters, is that it's overinflation. People went from having never heard of Chris Curtis, he comes in as a mid-30-year-old journeyman fighter, to back-to-back knockout of the nights, 2 big dog cashes, he's got a fun personality, now all of a sudden he's everybody's baby. He went from an unknown to everybody's baby, and that's kind of where I started to lose touch with him a little bit. Like, even just messaging him, you could tell the ego went to his head, huge on social media, not really the same guy, but beyond that, the fans love him, and they rave about him, and they want to see this guy fight the best guys. He's still who he is, but there's some mad hype. That hype carries him as the betting favorite over Rodolfo Vieira. He's a betting favorite over Jack Hermanson. He's a betting favorite over Joaquin Buckley. He's like slight underdog to Kelvin Gastelum. He was only plus 150 against Nasruddin Imavov. None of these lines make any sense. These guys are better than him, and they've got him as the favorite or near even money because people love Action Man. But yeah, you're seeing the limitations to him. He's a welterweight fighter competing at 185 pounds. Stands 5'10". He ain't no 5'10", man. He'd be 5'9". And yeah, he's got a 75-inch reach on him, kind of long arms for the guy. But yeah, he generally always blows the first round just staring at his opponent. Has good volume, but at times it's just like touch, go sparring type fight. Isn't above throwing out an absolute snoozer. There's just like, I feel like the market's been all over on him. So now he beats Marc-Andre Barriault in Canada, and he landed 100 significant strikes, so you can't say that he didn't do his part, but it was booed. Everyone was booing. It was a boring-ass fight. It was like a sparring session. Like, touch, slip, touch. No killer instinct. Terrible fight. He wins a split decision. His very next fight against Brandon Allen, again, he outlanded Brandon Allen, landed something like 125 significant strikes. loses the fight on split decision. So you need the right set of judges that like what he's doing. If he gets the knockout, great, he wins the fight. If he doesn't get the knockout, he probably outlands his opponents. You just need the judges to actually look at the body work or at least see, the slight nuances that he's doing. He's a world-class operator, in my opinion, but he needs the right opponent, he needs the right line, and then he can go out there and show out. Curtis kind of lived his life as a single man, took fights everywhere, moved everywhere, fought for whatever company was willing to give him a shot. But recently, he already has a kid, but is not with the baby mama. But now he's got another kid, young kid, in Las Vegas. It does seem like he's highly motivated. He got a main event against Brandon Allen, a 5-round fight. And Chris Curtis is a 5-round fighter because of the way he's able to conserve energy and fight 25 minutes. And then he comes up short on a split decision. If he goes out there and he loses his fight to Roman Kopylov, he's falling outside of the top 15. They're not willing to pay a guy like Action Man 60,000 to show up, 70,000 to show up, 80,000 to show up. He actually gets some pretty good money right now. They're going to release him a lot quicker than they would your average fighter, unless he can show that he can still compete at a higher level. He's a 2-1 betting underdog versus a guy that's not in the top 15, or not in the top 10 anyways, certainly not a factor to win a title at any point. Then they're going to start kind of losing some of that patience in Action Man. So I think he's going to be highly motivated. I think he goes out, he wins this fight. How does he win this fight? Okay, this is how he wins it. Look at Roman Kopylov right from the get-go, cardio issue. His UFC debut against Carl Roberson, he flat gasses out in the 3rd round and gets rear naked choked. His very next fight against Albert Duraev, he dropped Duraev early. Then by the 3rd round, he is flat gassed out and he ends up dropping the unanimous decision. He goes on a little run there, beats Alicio Di Chirico, beats Puna Soriano, beats Claudio Ribeiro. The Ribeiro fight, end of the 1st round, he damn near gets knocked out. Big chin check, and then the round ends. Comes back and he beats Josh Frem. 4-fight winning streak. Puts himself back into some type of contention. All wins inside the distance. He is a cardio gas bag. He's just waiting to get exposed. I don't think that changed about him. So Fluffy Hernandez, who's a cardio machine and a great grappler, he just puts pace on him. Yeah, he's a better grappler and he can use his grappling to win, but it's the pace. And you just see Roman Kopylov, who's a guy that's always broken under pressure and pace. Same thing happens there. So now he gets a Cesar Almeida fight because I see him in Dagestan, because I see him training his wrestling. I ain't betting him, okay? Absolutely greasy fight, man. I know you're saying you thought it was a unanimous for Kopylov. I thought Kopylov could have lost that fight. He's getting hit every time standing. The bigger shots are from Almeida. He gets outstruck in all 3 rounds. It's these desperate-ass takedown attempts work on Almeida. Well, those desperate-ass takedown attempts are not going to work on Chris Curtis. So Kopylov needs to rely on his primary skill set, which is outstrike this guy. But in a fight with Curtis, he's going to land 100 significant strikes, and he's going to roll, and he's going to work you to the body. You're going to have a high work rate. Claudio Ribeiro chin-checked you. You don't think Action Man's going to find the target at some point? Kopylov might win the 1st round. Action Man tends to be a slow starter and give up those first. I can see Kopylov winning that 1st round. He's a little bit longer. Technically, they have the same reach, 75 inches, but Kopylov's 2 inches taller, I believe. At first, maybe he uses those rangefinder jabs and a right hand and uses some kicks. The 2nd round, he's going to start to slow down. Once he starts to slow down, he'll be at the same speed as Action Man. Action Man will start to find the target. In the 3rd round, if this thing's 1-1, we're money. Action Man's taking that 3rd. We're winning at 29-28. Action Man also might be able to finish him in the 3rd round if this thing's 1-1 going into the 3rd, or if we're down 2 going into the 3rd. The main thing is that you're going to have to let it marinate a little bit, have to let it simmer a little bit, wait for Kopylov to start falling off. And at that point, I think that's when Chris Curtis comes in, swoops in, gets the job done. To your point about the Russians, okay? Las Vegas is absolutely full of Russians. They're in every single gym. So you got 2 guys that he never said they were training partners of his. He said 2 Russian guys came to the gym a few times. And now I see they're in Kopylov's corner, or not corner, but in his camp. Rat move. Bro, you train in Las Vegas, the fight capital of the world. Do you know how many people walk in those doors every day? The Performance Institute. Quite literally, everybody comes to town and goes to Performance Institute. What are you going to say? Yo, this is my territory. It's not your territory. So what? A couple Russian guys came in on a session. You're at a mega gym. You're at a mega gym that might have 100 people on the floor at any given time. Come on, man. A couple spies. That never actually even trained with him. Yeah, it sounds like he's in his own head.
Sounds like you're an asset of Spygate, Cody.
I had a guy, James Nguyen, Extreme Couture, Etobicoke, and his coach was like, listen, he specifically wants to fight any of these 3 or 4 guys from this one specific gym, okay? So I'm like, all right, sure. So I messaged the head coach from that gym and I'm like, listen, they got a guy, 135 pounds, and he's offering to fight any of the 4 guys that you have on the team that are 135 pounds. Let's do it. And he's like, absolutely not. I'm like, why? And he's like, that kid came to our gym for like 5, 6 days. He spent, I think, Tuesday to Saturday there, did sparring session on Saturday, felt the guys in the room, went right back to his gym, canceled his week-long membership, went back to his gym, told his head coach, I can beat those 4 guys. And his head coach called to say he wants to fight one of those 4 guys. The promoter was so upset by it, they banned the team from ever competing on the cards again, saying it was a flat rat move that you would send a guy to the gym to train with them for a week, to come back, to then call out guys from that gym because you know you can beat them now. Maybe it's a rat move, maybe it's not, but it's gamesmanship, right? It's the art of war. You're trying to get as much information as you possibly can. Whether these guys went there and saw Chris Curtis hit in the bag. You know how many guys I watch in the gym look absolutely awful, and then the cage door closes and it's like they're the game day fighters. They show up. You know, they're big dog bounty hunters. They want to go out there and get the job done. So what can you really see from a guy floating around in the gym doing a few light sparring sessions or doing some strength and conditioning? Like, do you know the book on him? The guy's got 50 pro fights that you can readily watch all of them, but do you think hanging in the gym for a few days, that's going to be the key to success? I don't know. What I do know is that Chris Curtis has fought 50 guys and he'll willing to fight 50 more. He does not care. If Kopylov felt the need to send guys in to get some extra work, I don't know. Maybe he's the one that's second guessing himself. I don't know. What I am saying is it's a great money line here on Chris Curtis. Very winnable fight for him. Fight that he's got the cardio advantage over. His striking is his best asset. Well, it's Kopilov's best asset. Neutralize that. Now Kopilov's got to rely on wrestling. He's not taking down Action Man. God, I hope he tries. I hope he tries to take down Action Man because it's not going to work, and then he's going to gas himself out. The quicker he gasses himself out, the quicker Chris Curtis takes over in this fight. Last thing I got to say, Chris Curtis is 100% a 170-pound fighter, so fighting at 185 will always be a disadvantage to him. But Brandon Allen's 6'2". Marc-Andre Barrios 6'1". Nasruddin Imavov 6'3". This is nothing new to him. In fact, Kopylov is a much smaller guy than most of the guys he's been fighting as of late. So sign me up for Action Man. This might be our last big cash on Action Man, you know, but I'm here for it, dude. I'm absolutely here for it. So plus 210, sign me up for Chris Curtis.
Damn it, Cody. I'm flipping my pick. I'm not going to let you cash on a plus 200 on Action Man. You made a lot of good points there. Your volume, cardio, everything like that. I mean, the wrestling from Kopylov I don't really think is going to be at least a useful tool over the course of 15 minutes. I was picking him, but it's like, if I'm actually putting money down on this, it's like I'm not putting Kopylov as like a pillar of a parlay or anything like that. I'm not laying, 2.5 to 1 to win a unit. I'm flipping my pick. We all go down together with the Action Man. All right, we got Austin Bashi taking on Christian Rodriguez. Bashi, a minus 303 favorite. Rodriguez can be had for plus 247. Watched 13-0 prospect here in Bashi. I believe he just turned 23 years old. I watched his Contender Series fight back like about an hour ago. And I've been watching this line this entire break because these lines have been out for a while. And it's just like Bashi just keeps becoming a bigger favorite. So I've been thinking about Rodriguez because, he's been good against prospects. Obviously, Raul Rosas, learned against Christian Rodriguez. It's like you're going to need 3 rounds of cardio, buddy, if you're not able to just get people out of there. I know they've had some issues with submission defense in some spots and stuff, but I don't know. Watching that Bashi fight back, I still think the kid looks really, really green. There's glimpses there, and that's not to say that he could be a very good prospect when he gets a little bit more seasoned, gets a few more fights, and losing to Christian Rodriguez wouldn't be the end of anything. Get back on the horse, but it's I think Rodriguez is a pretty well-rounded mixed martial artist. His first round, maybe Bashi comes in with a lot of fury early on in the fight, and maybe you can get a better price after round 1. And Bashi didn't really show any signs in that Contender Series fight of slowing down, but I'm kind of puzzled by why this Contender Series kid is such a big favorite. I see potential. I don't see a finished product. And at minus 303, I need a finished product. So another dogger pass situation here for me. What about you?
Yeah, I think Bashi's the real deal, but yeah, he's still very young. He's only 23 years old. It reminds me in ways of Michael Chandler. He's like very hyper explosive, solid wrestling, natural athlete, moves quite well, but hasn't developed that big power that Chandler has. Hasn't developed those absolute dog fights and those drag him out spots that Chandler went through to get to where he ended up getting. Bashi's just still that young version. But one thing about him is that he turned pro like, I don't know, a month after his 19th birthday. So he's been fighting professionally for 4 years now. Although he is a 23-year-old fighter, he's racked up plenty of wins. And when you watch this guy, man, I know you're saying he's green because he's young, and I agree with that. But damn, dude, this guy looks massively talented. I wouldn't say Peyton Talbot talented, but one of these very young kids that is, if he figures to continue to get better, by the time he's in his mid-20s, watch out. Absolutely watch out. Bashi gives me those same type of vibes, is that he's fought some decent guys like Pipe Vargas, Asker, Dorian Ramos on the Contender Series. None of those guys are good, but they're all okay, and he finished all three of them. So comes from a wrestling background, wrestled a little bit at the collegiate level. Quick timing on his entries, able to get these guys down when he secures top position. I mean, he's got a great back take, solid rear naked choke. Maybe another guy you compare him to is Aaron Pico. Got all the skills in the world, but is he going to be a fighter's fighter? Is he going to like the taste of his own blood? Is he going to be able to persevere through the back steps and the injuries? That remains to be seen, but he's solid. And then here's what I don't understand. The UFC signs this kid that has a wealth of potential and could go on to do some great things. And they give him the absolute prospect killer, Christian Rodriguez. Mm-hmm. And also, who's Christian Rodriguez pissed off? Like, either this guy is just an absolute hitman and they bring him in to do their dirty work, or they've got a personal vendetta against him because he's fought Jonathan Pierce in a short notice UFC debut, Raul Rosas in a fight that he was a plus 200 underdog in, Isaac Dulgarian in a fight he was a plus 170 underdog in. He's been getting like a lot of, even Julian Erosa. Julian Erosa's got 20 UFC fights and has beaten some top guys in the division. They're all tough fights. Like, he never gets any easy fights, but he's an excellent barometer test of where these guys actually at. Here's my only knock on him, is that two knocks on him. Knock number one is that he's got weak takedown defense. Like, everybody takes him down. His Contender Series fight against Reyes Cortez Jr., who's Tracy Cortez's brother, he got taken down twice. His fight with Jonathan Pierce was a short notice debut. He got taken down 6 times. Joshua Weems took him down twice. Raul Rosa took him down 3 times. Dominates the first round, almost a 10-8. Gasses in the second. As soon as he gassed, he could no longer get Christian Rodriguez down. Christian wins the fight. Okay. Then he gets Isaac Dulgarian. Dulgarian 10-8s him in the first round. Some people were saying it was a 10-7. The second round, it's not that Dulgarian gasses, is that he can't quite get any control time with the takedowns. He can get the takedown, and Rodriguez is just right back up again. So it's exerting a lot of energy, having to constantly drag him back down, let him back up, drag him back down. That the refs or the judges start looking at damage, which Rodriguez starts to accumulate. He gets him 48-22, but he gave up 7 takedowns. He got caught in 2 submission attempts. The judges, I wouldn't say gift it, but there's no world that exists that fight's not a draw. Mm-hmm. How does Dulgarian not... It's not a 10-9 first round. He absolutely dominates. Second round, third round, Christian Rodriguez might edge those. It's 2 rounds to 1, but because of the 10-8, it's a draw. The fact that he walks away with a win is puzzling. But then Julian Erosa, he's quirky. We used to call him like a high on methamphetamine version of Dominic Cruz with the movement. He can wrestle and he can grapple, no doubt about it. But those, certainly not wrestling, would not be one of his primary skill sets. He takes him down in the first round, but then transitions over to the guillotine choke and chokes him out. 1 for 1 with the takedown. Bottom line is he's had now 6 fights in the UFC where he's been taken down in 5 of those 6 fights. And his Contender Series fight, he had also given up 2 takedowns. So 7 fights with the organization in whole, taken down in 6 of them. Taken down 6 times by Pierce, 3 times by Raul Rosas, 7 times by Dulgarian. There's a clear path of victory there if you can take him down. Now, where did Raul Rosas Jr. go wrong? He gassed. Where did Isaac Dulgarian go wrong? He ran out of things to do once he secured body lock takedowns, right? But Dulgarian turned pro just before his 26th birthday. Like he's got 7 pro fights when he fought Christian Rodriguez. Like, he's still figuring it out on the fly. Bashi's got 13 pro fights and has been fighting for 4 years, debuted as a 19-year-old. So to me, he can do similar things to what Bulgarian did, which is get those reactionary takedowns when he wants them, but probably have more success with the control time. And I'm thinking not gas out. The kid just looks like he's in incredible shape, and he's 21 years old. So I think he's got those youthful, fresh lungs on him. Push the pace, get the takedowns, win 2 of the 3 rounds, get it done that way. The last thing I want to sprinkle on for you is that big eye-opening win, for Christian Rodriguez against Raul Rosas Jr. That's really kind of what put him on the map. But he missed weight in that fight. It's scheduled at 135. He comes in at 137 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
His subsequent fight against Cameron Simon, he misses weight for that as well. Comes in at 140 pounds versus Simon's 135. So back-to-back weight misses at 135. They send him to 145. His 2 fights at 145 were highly debated split decision over Bulgarian, where he got out-muscled and got taken down 7 times. And then Julian Erosa takes him down and chokes him out. So at 135, this kid's big and he's hard to take down over and over, and you tire trying to fight him. At 145, that's less or so. And I would think that Bashi is just, again, strong enough to get those takedowns, hold him down when need be, win 2 of the 3 rounds, survive in the 3rd if you have to. But probably more often than not, this guy's going to be tired. And the more tired he gets, the more success Bashi should start to realize. So I understand the money moving in on Bashi, but it's still a UFC debut. It's still a very, very, very tough fight. And at this point, the money line is a little bit blown out of proportion. So there are a few red flags, no doubt about it. But for my personal take, he's the pick. I got Austin Bashi to pick up his first UFC win.
Yeah, there has been a little bit of buyback. Like, it got up to like plus 250 at one point, and now at Coolbet it's like plus 210. Rodriguez. I don't know. Watching that Dorian Ramos fight on Contender Series, like, a lot of the entries to the takedown seem like desperate, a little bit like overzealous and stuff. Things that, like, I think with the right coaching, you can definitely fix these types of situations. But there's no doubt that, like, Christian Rodriguez's takedown defense has always been a problem, and Bashi is relentless. So definitely can get there, get those takedowns, get 2 of 3 rounds, and move on to the next one. It's an interesting fight. We'll see how the rest of the week plays out. Haven't put any money on C-Rod yet. But yeah, it's I don't know. I just have kind of like a gut feeling that maybe he's not quite ready for the moment, but we will find out on Saturday night. We got Uros Medic taking on Puna Soriano, minus 192 for Uros. Puna can be had for plus 160. Puna at 170 pounds, all of a sudden, D1 collegiate wrestler, Cody. That's what I saw last time out there. I was happy to see him get back on track because, like, I remember we were at PFL. Hopefully, Puna's not watching the show, and like you were like talking some smack while we were like looking at him like a few rows away. You're just like, oh, that guy's a middleweight. That guy's a middleweight.
Yeah, bro, he's my
that little
size,
midget over there.
Middleweight.
It was all in good fun for the most part, but yeah, like, I think going down there, and I mean, it was a win over Miguel Baeza, but he dominated that fight. Like, it was not competitive. He got the takedowns when he wanted. Well, it was like 140 to 11 in significant strikes. He, fought off the submission attempts coming back from the Baeza side. It was a good appearance at 170. It fits his build-up, obviously. Like, his physicality, he's actually able to use that wrestling. It's like, I know he's like only like a high school wrestler, not exactly like elite level, but it's like it wasn't useful at 185 pounds. Those guys are just way too big, and he was always struggling with gas issues as well. I don't know what that was, but whatever he did to get ready for the Baeza fight, we saw massive improvements there. I don't know if he's going to need that for this fight because I kind of expect fireworks between the two of these guys. Both of them hit very, very hard. Medic finishes a lot of fights in the first round. Puna can, knock people out in the first round. I took some of the I know you hate under 1.5s, and maybe I'll hate them after this weekend, but I took a little bit, like about a week ago, took a little bit of the under 1.5 here. Forget the exact price that I had on it. It was probably slightly better than the plus 120 that's available at Coolbet right now, but I'll side with Puna because of plus money underdog, plus the fact that like he showed us some of that wrestling there. So forced to pick a money line side, I'm gonna go with Puna. D1 Puna coming at you, Cody. What's your take here?
Yeah, I've been tricked into spots like this before, where Soriano goes from looking absolutely atrocious to all of a sudden, my God, this guy's pretty good. The drop in weight certainly made a big difference. The time off, whatever it may be, is like you get caught in a spot where you're like, this guy had 3 or 4 awful performances, and now it's all forgiven because of that one big return fight. That's kind of what Soriano had, I find. I'll admit. At 170 pounds, he looked infinitely better. Way stronger, cardio looked better. Physically, he was just much better shape. His ground and pound was on point. Soriano, he's just a gas bag, man. Like, he can't land more than 65, 70 significant strikes. All of his fights, 47 landed. Went to decision, 66 landed. Went to decision, 45 landed. Went to decision, 39 landed. He's a low volume guy. Then all of a sudden, at 170 pounds, it's like either it was an awesome weight cut or it was an awesome batch of EPO, but the guy looked just career best. And I will admit, if that version of him is what we can expect in the future, then he looks solid. He always had a wrestling base. It was like maybe like a state champion in Hawaii back before moving over to the United States. He's American already, but coming into the mainland and settling up in Las Vegas, he had a wrestling base. You saw in his Contender Series fight in his UFC debut, he wrestled a little bit, but for the most part, he's not attempted takedowns on almost anybody. He's so complacent and just sitting there and getting boxed up. Low volume, power's really nothing to write home about. There's no X factor to him. At 170, it seemed to change everything. Now, is that one good fight at 170, or is that what we can now expect? I'm gonna go with the former, at least on this spot. Miguel Baeza shot to bits, man. Like, he does not look like the same guy. He's not looked new engaged. He just got muscled to the ground. He got taken down 5 times on 6 attempts. He never even tried to fight the takedown. He just accepted that I'm gonna roll to my back, throw up a couple submission attempts, and mostly just try to stay out of harm's way while getting mauled the entire time. There was no real resistance. Puna got punched in the face before. You can see him all of a sudden. It's like that self-doubt starts to creep in. If you can give him some real resistance and some pushback, then he'll start to fatigue. But if you just lie on your back and let the guy ground and pound you for 3 straight rounds, then yeah, he can have a career best performance. Baza's now released from the roster, rightfully so. He looked absolutely atrocious his last number of outings with the company. I'm not hating on Soriano. He looked career best, but part of me is like, that doesn't necessarily mean he's all the way back because it's one good performance. If you fought the worst guy in the roster and you looked tremendous against him, is that indicative that you're back? I don't know. And similar to Vicente Luque versus RDA, let's say, he never completes any takedowns, and all of a sudden he's a wrestling machine. Does that mean he's a wrestling machine, or was it one favorable matchup that he was able to exploit that? Now, taking down Uros Medic, I think it's a good path to victory, to be honest with you. The guy's takedown defense is not exactly great. His submission defense is not exactly great. Why not go with that? Here's the only foreseeable problem, in my opinion. The guy's hell on wheels, man. Like, he just gets back up and comes right at you. He always pushes a hell of a pace. He's capable of landing high volume if the fight goes so far. He's got natural power in both hands. He's a flawed fighter defensively, doesn't have great durability, doesn't have great takedown defense and submission defense, as I alluded to. But he's a dog. He's just one of these guys that be constantly trying to fight you. When he fought Milibek Orlabai is probably the biggest guy in the division, and Orlabai does take him down 7 times and ends up catching him in a face crank, but he took him down 7 times on 10 attempts. If Soriano is forced to wrestle to that extent and needs to shoot 10 or 12 or 15 takedowns, he's going to gas out. What was happening in Beza was he would shoot one single takedown, immediately get it, and now you're on top. You want to take a minute off? Go ahead. This idiot's not going to do anything off his back. He's already given up on himself 6 minutes ago. So he punches away some more. He punches away some more. He dominates pillar to post, but it's a Beza that's mentally checked out and doesn't even want to be there anymore. I don't think that that's going to be the case with Euro Medic. He's got a strong power. I don't want to say a huge power advantage, but I feel like he's the better striker. If he can keep this fight standing, he can capitalize and beat Soriano. If he's getting taken down, which I guess I could see happening, especially because of that last Soriano performance, he's just got to continuously work his way back up and cause him to work. As soon as Soriano starts to get tired, he's going to get caught on the end of something. And Medic is a pretty big 170, right? So I wouldn't say he could fight at middleweight, but it's not exactly like Soriano's going to have some huge size advantage over him. In fact, I think Medic is the bigger guy overall. So definitely want to check out weigh-ins on this one and see how they square off on the scales. Soriano is the underdog, and it's a nice price tag. So like, I'm not gonna fault anybody
bigger,
that
so there's no rush to jump in on the Soriano side
yeah,
now.
like I wouldn't fault any because when I saw it, I will admit I was like, "Ooh, this don't look too bad." But I don't want to chase dogs this year. I want to
That's
just
fair.
take who I think is gonna win. And when some of those dogs, you have a good gut feeling, as you mentioned about earlier, you feel good about it. The analytics look okay. You talk to a few people, they seem to be on the same page. Why not take the shot? I can see Soriano winning, but for me, he's gonna have to get. Damn, he looked really good at 170 again. Oh man, I can't wait to see him. The third time around, or the fourth time around, or the fifth time around. You build off of it. I got to see a little bit more from him. Not discrediting him at all. It was a huge career comeback, man. This guy looked like his walking papers were very, very, very close to him. And then he goes out and puts on a stellar performance in his new weight class. All good things. I wish him all the best, but he's still going to have to do a little more proving in my eyes. So I
Fair.
think Menace just catches him with something at some point or causes him to work and fatigue and maybe pulls it off. But you can stay away from this fight as well. Like, I don't have a ton of confidence in Medic. It's in Vegas. It's at the Apex. Soriano's going to be ultra comfortable here because he's there all year round. Yeah, you could talk your way into both sides. I'm going to take Medic as the official pick, but he's not going to be someone I want to have a ton of investment on.
Yeah, these are all fair points. I was just looking through. I'm like, you know me. You're like, I don't want to make any crazy stupid bets, and I was just like, I wonder what price Puna by sub is because he's never subbed anybody. But if he was ever gonna do it, this may be the spot. The only I see 18-1 is mostly the only number on market that I really see right now. But it's obviously still early in the week, and over on the Patreon side, we do have plans to do a prop show a little bit later in the week. So just tune in for that if you're interested. We can kind of, once all these markets and different books open up opportunities and stuff like that, we can kind of dig into it a little bit more. See if we can find any value in those streets. But Soriano by I would need 30-1 and up. Like, he's never done it before, so it would have to be pretty silly for me to give it a shot. A silly number in that respect. I do silly things all the time, but
yeah. I would prefer the Medic by knockout. Again, he knocked out
sure, but that's going to be
Mikey Gonzalez
1/10
on the
of the
Contender
price.
Series. It's well, for sure. But I mean, yeah, all four of his UFC wins are by knockout. His fight on the Contender Series was knockout. In all of those fights, he's got a combined 5, 6. He's landed 6 knockdowns in the UFC. If he lands on point A, this thing's like
It's like
this thing's
plus
over.
130. So its price is that's the most likely outcome, and I get that.
And his two losses are Orlabai and Jalen Turner. So you know what? I'm gonna go on a huge stretch here, Paul. This might be a bit of a stretch. Jared Cannonier number 1, Lauren Murphy number 2, Uros Medic the third best fighter from Alaska ever. Dog, you heard it here first.
Cody Saftik, Alaska FC whisperer, supporter and believer. It sounds like.
Well, he's better than Carlton Minus and Justin Buchholz and Patrick White. And
it's been a rough run for the people from the great state of Alaska. I will say that.
Yeah.
Doesn't tend to work out, except for Cannonier. But usually they have to get out of Alaska. That's the real key. It's like Cannonier. He was horrible. He was horrible when he actually lived in Alaska. They all go to Arizona typically because of the taxes. And then they go down there, and that's where Lauren Murphy and Cannonier both found successes. Where does Medit? Is he in Vegas? Is that where he trains out of?
California. He's a Rafael Cordero guy. King's MMA.
Okay. It's all interesting, but yeah, I definitely have. I mean, I was looking at Puna's Instagram. I mean, at 170, Puna looks jacked. Like he's
Yeah, way better than 85.
way better. So this could be the beginning of something. But yeah, Medic is dangerous, and all I know is that this fight's super fun. As I said at the beginning of it, I have some money on the under 1.5. I expect fireworks. It's kind of like any Medic fight. It's like you expect fireworks. It's plus money. Very likely somebody gets knocked out in the first round here, to be perfectly honest. All right, we got Jose Johnson taking on Felipe Bunes, minus 196 for Jose Johnson. Bunes can be had for plus 165. Who you got?
Yeah, okay, so maybe you do take Jose Johnson, but take him after the first round, which he probably loses. And then at that point, hope that Bunes is just going to gas out, which he normally does, and Johnson works his way back into it. I don't love the idea of betting him that minus 190, almost minus 200 pre-flop, given that I think he's going to get taken down. Like, you got to realize with Jose Johnson, because he's such a long rangy guy, 6 foot, 71-inch reach at this weight class, fights at 125 pounds, and he's 6 feet tall. His ability to stuff takedowns is always going to be the issue. He's coming off a fight against Asu Almabayev, where he got taken down 6 times, but furthermore, got held down for 11 minutes and 24 seconds of the fight. So it's been a constant issue time and time again. And Jose Johnson has a ton of wins by triangle choke. It's actually one of his better submissions, but they come because he's on his back because he's getting taken down. Bunes, if you go and you look at this guy, he's a BJJ black belt, and he actually has some solid, very credible submission victories, but he's got to get them done early. You know, Canadian fans will remember when he beat Yoni Sherbatov with a flying triangle armbar, but again, it happens like early in the first round. Finishes a lot of these fights quickly, right? All of his losses for the most part. I guess you got to look at that last one. His fight with Joshua Van, it's his UFC debut. He's 35 years old, which is super old when you're 125 pounds to be making your UFC debut. So he's 34 when he makes his debut. He's 35 now. But debuts, takes Joshua Van down twice in the first round, lands like 50 significant strikes, 40 significant strikes in the first round, has a solid, very solid first round. That second round, he starts to tire. As he starts to tire, and Josh Van, who is a slow starter, starts to pick up that momentum, he just flat out puts him away. So you think, okay, well, maybe it's just one, since that's just one situation of that happening. Joshua Van's a top fighter. Yeah, fair. But his fight with Yusir Formiga, which would have been his last loss prior to that in 2022, he gets choked out in the second round. He had won a split decision over Wasker Cruz in 2022. The guy's 13-9. But what happens is once Wasker Cruz survives that first round, Bunes tires. His other losses are in Russia. No one's going to fault him against that. No one's going to ever fault you for losing to Imran Bukayev, Murad Magomedov, and Mansour Katayev, one of which was 7-0. The other guy was 8-0. The other guy was 10-1. But all three of them beat him by decision in fights that he starts off well in, then he starts to fatigue. So you got a guy that fought once last year. He fought once the year before that. He's pulled out of a few fights due to injuries. He's now 35 years old, fighting at the fastest weight class in men's MMA. He'll have a good first round, and that's kind of where he's been at throughout the course of his career. Jose Johnson, meanwhile, he's had a lot of bad first rounds. In fact, the reason you don't want to bet this guy at 2-1 over pretty much anybody is his fight with Damon Blackshear. He gets caught in a twister first round. On the contenders, on his last Fury UFC fight before Contender Series, maybe? I guess it was at Manny Martinez, but Manny Martinez knocks him out 32 seconds. He got absolutely out-grappled by Ronnie Lawrence on the Contender Series. Levi Moles choked him out in the first round. Casey Jones choked him out in the first round. Michael McDonald armbarred him in the first round. Even as an amateur, quite a few losses there as well. As an amateur fighter, he went 24-14 was his amateur record, right? 14 losses as an amateur. He has 9 losses as a professional. So losing's not something that's new to him. He gets caught in submissions all the time. He's 6 feet tall, man. Where it's a huge advantage in some aspects and regards, it's a huge disadvantage in others. So the idea to me that in a flyweight fight, 2-1 against a guy in Bunes that's going to be ultra dangerous in the first round, why would you not just live bet this thing? Because here's what's going to happen. If Bunes pulls off that quick submission, you don't have to worry about it. You didn't bet it at all. I'm outs. If Bunes takes him down and is able to grapple him, but you can kind of see, he's starting to fatigue. And Jose Johnson, he gets taken down all of the time. He's quite comfortable off his back because he spends so much of his fights on his back It's just become home for him. If you can see that he's comfortable and he's thwarting off the submission attempts and he's working his way back up, at some point the tide is going to turn on this fight. I would just rather an even money ticket on Johnson or a plus money ticket on Johnson once he drops that first round. Second and third round, I do feel like he works his way back into it. Bunes is a little long in the tooth for my liking. Cardio, my favorite thing a guy can have in this game, is something that he's lacking. 35 years old at 125 pounds. Oof, you better be one of the best in the world if you want to keep fighting in this sport, in this division at that age. And Bunes is not that guy. In fact, the fact that he got signed to the UFC was a bit of an anomaly in the first place. But he won the LFA title, so they needed a guy and they threw him in there. It's no knock on him. This is a nice little cherry on top of a nice little career. He won an LFA title. He fought in Russia. He's got solid victories over guys like Yoni Sherbatov. He's had a nice career. He didn't factor to make the UFC. Him making it, that was a nice little caveat. Him winning a fight in the UFC, it's going to be tough. They're going to have to give him lowly ranked guys. And Jose Johnson, it's not that he's lowly ranked. He's got like, between his amateur career and his pro career, he's got like damn near 60 fights. These guys fight all of the time. The rhythm becomes second nature. The timing becomes second nature. Your ability to make in-fight adjustments or decision-making starts to become a lot more fluent. Bunes has had 2 fights in the last 2 years. You know, he needs to finish you right away or this thing extends out and he's no good in that area. So live bet Johnson, but because on our show we have to make a pre-fight pick, it's going to be Johnson. Don't love the line. Don't love flyweight. Don't love the fact that he's going to be getting taken down early and could get submitted. But eventually, I think he finds a way to keep this thing standing, land the more meaningful shots, and either force a late stoppage of his own or pick up the decision victory.
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that as well. It's like you echo a lot of the same sentiments. I was like, I like Johnson, but like, am I going to get, really tied up to this? No. But that's the great thing about live markets is like, I can get a read, I can get a feeling, I can see how things are shaking out. And maybe even get a better price. The problem with Johnson and is just like that takedown defense is so bad. And then he's taking on a grappler that like, Jose, he's got like a crafty like Johnson's got like a crafty guard and stuff, but it's like taking on somebody that it's like probably your submission attempts from the bottom are not going to scare this guy, not going to put you in any sort of situation where you can like scramble to get back to your feet. So you're just gonna have to do it the old-fashioned, dirty way, and by doing that, some of the times you have to expose yourself. So yeah, it's one that I don't really want to get overly invested in. Little bit scary. We got Marco Tulio taking on Ihor Potieria, minus 500 for the Contender Series. Double veteran in Tulio. Ihor plus 375. I mean,
just plug your nose and take Ihor, man.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Because like I watched Tulio's both of his Contender Series fights, and I was just like,
yeah, minus 500.
I can't do
no
this.
Way.
I can't do this. I'm like, I know Ihor. It's been a horrible run. I think he's making some improvements, at least in that Cesar Almeida fight. He showed that it's like against somebody who absolutely can't grapple, he can grapple a little bit. But like this Tulio fight, it's kind of just 2 sluggers mostly. I guess Marco Tulio did a little bit of wrestling in the fight there. I mean, 6 minutes of control time, so he's got a little bit round 3. Where he's got most of that control time. Yeah, you have minus 500. I mean, you watch like his striking. Sure, he's got power. A lot of guys have power. Technique's not. I don't know. Just he doesn't seem like some sort of super prospect. And I know Ihor's been horrible. It's been a very, very, very tough run. But if it just turns into 15 minutes of striking between the two of these guys, I could see it being very, very competitive, and I wouldn't mind, even if it loses, having a plus 375 ticket in that type of scenario. So sounds like we're on the same page.
Yeah, honestly, it's a dogger pass fight. Quintessential dogger pass fight. You're not going to pay no minus 500 on Tulio, where I think Ihor, as much as he's a very limited fighter for sure, I think he's got passive victory in this fight, and just the line is way off. You either want nothing to do with this fight, or you're taking a little flyer on a big underdog that has a path to victory, and that becomes Ihor. These are the facts. These are the facts that nobody wants to talk about, but they're facts all the same. Everybody hates Ihor. They're not really sure why, but they do. I think it's because he was like doing that little dance after he knocked out Shogun, even though Shogun is a tenured legend of the game. And you're going to go and do this little dance after putting him away? It was disrespectful. And after that, I never liked him. And I feel like most people don't like him. It's not a very likable guy. So that hate, it draws up that you want to see him lose. And everybody wants to see him lose. And they want to see him get beat up. And everyone loves betting against him. I know you're saying it's not been a great run, but man, I'm going to start making some excuses for this guy. Right off the hop, he is dynamite. Like, if he does land on you, he could definitely, put some consecutive power together, put people away. He was mostly known as like I guess he'd be like a can crusher when he was on the regional scene, but he's knocking out the vast majority of these guys. And for the most part, they did have winning records anyways. Comes to the UFC in his debut against Nicolle Negumereanu. It's one of the worst fights you've ever seen in your life, right? It's so bad that everybody hates him. But also, that's why Shogun got the Potieria fight, was because they realized who's the worst guy on the roster. And it's Ihor. So they give him Shogun, and he knocks out Shogun. He's got power. He just doesn't really get that skill. So then they book him versus Carlos Ulberg. Well, god damn. You think anybody's saying this is an easy fight? No. And I'll give him one thing in that fight with Ulberg, is he comes forward and tries to mix it up with him. He just walks into a nasty counter and puts him over. Then they'd give him Rodolfo Bellato. Well, it's a really tough fight, man. Bellato's supposed to be this, undefeated prospect who's got a tons of power. If you look at Ihor is, against Ulberg, he's a plus 330 underdog. And then they book him against Rodolfo, and he's a plus 335 underdog. It's a bigger underdog than he was against Ulberg. He's not expected to win this fight. Well, god damn, he almost wins this fight, man. He drops Bellato hard. Bellato gets back up, regains focus, ends up winning the fight. But Ihor is one of these guys that if you can get him at a plus 350, at a plus 400, whatever, he does embody that puncher's chance. He could knock you out. But again, I'm making excuses for this guy. Ulberg's a top 5, top 10 guy. Bellato, I don't like him all that much, but undefeated, ripped, jacked up prospect, supposed to be okay, still problematic. His other losses are Michel Pereira, who's an absolute beast of a man, and Cesar Almeida, in a fight that he probably would have won with a different referee there that wasn't constantly standing him up. So they've not really done him a favor. Ever since they gave him the Shogun fight, they've mostly given him a who's who of guys. And he keeps showing up. He's generally the betting underdog. He goes out there. He gives the best of his abilities. Now, here's the second thing that I don't mind about him, right? He loses to Rodolfo Bellato. It's a fight of the night. So, he makes 50 G's out of it. Then he decides, I'm going to drop down from 205 to 185, which is a big drop. It's 20 pounds, right? He drops down to 185, and he misses weight against Robert Burchek. You and I had him in that fight. He's the betting underdog. Surprise, surprise. He misses weight by like 2.5 pounds, and he goes out and cashes as an underdog over some jacked up Polish guy, Robert Burchek. Wins that fight solid. Gets back in the win column. Second fight at 185, that's where you're supposed to be more comfortable, more filled out. Oh, they give him Michel Pereira. Then they book him against Shara Magomedov, and then they gave him Cesar Almeida. And in the Cesar Almeida fight, he was a plus 360 underdog. In the Michel Pereira fight, he was a plus 400 underdog. They've at no point given this guy an even money fight. They've not given him favorable fights. He's quite literally always the betting underdog, and yet he keeps showing up and adding some new wrinkles to his game. I thought physically at 185, especially that last time out against Cesar Almeida, he looked as good physically as he ever has. Similar to Paul Craig, who I also do not rate, dropping down to 185. You see Paul Craig now, right? It's like, oh man, why didn't you do this before? Maybe you could have been good. Ihor dropping down to 185, now making the weight, now feeling more comfortable, now having a little more energy. Eventually it's going to pay off. Last thing I'll leave you with is he's 28 years old. So the guy's fighting some of the best guys in the sport and quite literally learning on the job. He went from fighting on the Ukrainian regional scene against almost nobody to debuting in the UFC at like 24, 25 years old to fighting a who's of guys in the division. So he's going to continuously make improvements. So you already know he's got a lot of power, and now he's a lot more physical than he used to be, and now his technique's going to be a little sharper than it used to be. At some point, he's going to cash another one of these dog tickets. It's going to happen. With Marco Tulio, he's 30 years old, so he's not a prospect. Okay, he comes on the Contender Series. They give him Yusri Balgaoui. Yusuf Balgaroui is a Swiss, I believe he's Swiss, kickboxing champion, excellent Muay Thai, is now a coach in Thailand, came over to the States and was working as a primary training partner with Glover Teixeira and Alex Pereira. He was supposed to be quite good. Tulio beats him in an awful fight in front of Dana White. He's 29 years old. He just beat a guy with a really nice background and like really credible guy, I should say. And Dana's like, thanks, but no thanks. They don't even sign him. He goes and he beats a 6-4 tune-up for LFA. They bring him back to the Contender Series against a 6-2 tune-up where he's a minus 500 favorite over some random Brazilian guy that's just can't wait for the opportunity to topple over in front of Dana White and tell his family about it. And that's what he does. So now Tulio, he's 30. He's not a prospect. He's got some power. Sure, he's a big guy. Fair enough. Okay, I'll give him that. But outside of that, it's like, can he fight like a hard fought 3 rounds if need be? If Ihor is able to mix in some more grappling, how does he respond? If he gets chin checked by Ihor, is he gonna bounce back of it? If he hits the canvas, is he gonna rise to the occasion and work his way back into the fight? You got a guy making his UFC debut versus a guy that's got 10 fights in the UFC. All of these things make Ihor very much a live underdog, and so dogger pass to me. Maybe it's the PRP pick. I'm going to take Ihor Potieria, which I absolutely never do. I'm going to give him a shot this time. He's earned my respect to a certain level, enough to respect him here, where I think a lot of people are showing him that disrespect, and that's the reason that this line is just too inflated for my liking. So, dogger pass for me. In this scenario, going to be the dog.
Absolutely no respect being given to Ihor this week. All right, let's move on. We got Thiago Moises taking on Trey Ogden. Moises, a minus 189 favorite. Ogden can be had for plus 160. Ogden's been on a great run. I will give credit where credit is due. I didn't really think much of this guy. Obviously, he's like, lead trainer at like Marathon, I believe. Yeah, Marathon Mixed Martial Arts. It's like he's kind of running that gym there. And he's shown a lot of improvement. I mean, that Mata fight, obviously, that was an absolute drubbing domination. Don't be fooled by the no contest if you're just wicket capping or whatever the kids are calling it these days. He was literally 2 minutes away from a very, very convincing unanimous decision there. And then wins over Hollowbah. And the last performance out there against Rajabov, where he's just like absolutely dominating the wrestling there, dominating control time. Definitely made a lot of improvements over the last few years, it feels like to me. But I understand, I guess, with Moises, like the volume's never always that great here. But a lot of the things that Ogden does, I think the problem here is that I don't know if he's going to be able to really get the wrestling going, and does he even want to get the wrestling going against Thiago Moises, who's credentialed black belt in BJJ, great submission skills. We have seen, with Moises, is like sometimes he has really slow starts. The Michael Johnson fight comes to mind, where he's in there, he's in the battle. He's getting absolutely torched in round 1 as like a pretty decent sized favorite against Michael Johnson, and then gets the submission in round 2. But it's like that's where like Michael Johnson doing Michael Johnson things. At least that was a period of time in like Johnson's career where it's like he looked like an absolute world beater, but then he would just make like really bad decisions in the moment. Less so recently, but that was kind of the period of time that I guess in MJ's career. I don't know. I think Moises is the side here. I just think he's a better all around fighter and probably submission upside here. What's your take on this fight?
Yeah, as of now, I'm kind of leaning towards Trey Ogden. Again, it's just a fight that I think is going to be relatively close, relatively competitive, and could probably end up getting swung either way. Trey Ogden, he like hit some type of, I won't call it a cheat code. I mean, he did it the right way, but it's like he's kind of figured out his career and what to do with it. His fight with Jordan Levitt, oh man, he gets outstruck by Jordan Levitt from the outside. This guy's no good. and he rebounds and he beats Daniel Zellhuber using the same game plan, right? Just outstriking him. Then James Krause ends up going down because allegedly he's betting on his fighters and this and that. He leaves. Glory MMA and Fitness now folds as a gym. The UFC is very adamant that we're not working with any fighters from Glory MMA and Fitness. So as a brand, as a gym, they can't survive. They have to fold. The team, though, the team still wants to get working. The team still wants to go to the gym every day. They just need a new name. And essentially all those guys just went to Marathon. That's why Marathon opens. And Trey Ogden goes from being someone that's getting work on the mats to now being the head coach. And all the guys that are under him, they're fighting very smart game plans. But he himself is fighting very smart game plans. The guy's a solid grappler and he knows where to just do enough. He's a little bit boring in the sense that he's probably not going to knock you out. Probably not going to submit you. Even the one guy that he technically submitted never actually did tap. So what he can do is he can win moments of the round to win those rounds. Win enough rounds to win the fight. The Zellhuber fight, he took the lesson he learned against Jordan Levitt, which is you don't necessarily need to take this guy down. You don't necessarily need to land that big kill shot. Just touch and go from the outside. Those lulls where he's sitting there and waiting, throw out two little kicks real quick. Throw out a little jab real quick. And in close competitive rounds where nothing's really happening, they're going to look at the guy that landed a little bit more. Ogden does that. His last 3 fights, meanwhile, takedowns, multiple takedowns in all of them. 3 over Nicolas Mata, who technically is a BJJ brown belt, under Glover Teixeira. But it just absolutely mauls Nicolas Mata, who's had a bit of a career resurgence since that loss. Then his fight with Kurt Holoba. Kurt Holoba, once upon a time, fought Thiago Moises, and Holoba was able to take Moises down 2-3 times. Like, his wrestling was solid in that fight. Not so much against Ogden, who absolutely neutralizes him. Kurt Holoba's a BJJ black belt. Kurt Holoba's a solid BJJ black belt. And yeah, it takes him down 3 times, goes to all the position he wants. It's a boring fight. But it's a fight that when they say, and you're a winner, you know who won because he's effective. He's not looking to wow the crowd. He's not looking to pick up a $50,000 bonus. He's looking to do what's necessary to win a fight. And I got to give him props for that. His fight with Loik Razbadanov. Loik is a Tajikistan tank, beast of a man, took down that Esteban Ribovics 11 times in his debut, and yet Ogden's able to take him down and neutralize him like nothing. He got like 9.5 minutes of control time in that fight. When he's standing, he's not stepping into the pocket and doing something wild. He's patient, he's waiting, he's seeing his opportunities, and he's really good at capitalizing on those few opportunities that he creates for himself. So when you're betting him as an underdog, and this happens to me all the time, you bet a guy favorite, and it's not like he's losing the fight. But he's losing the competition. He's getting taken down. He's getting controlled. He's getting outlanded. He's not busted up. He's not bleeding. He's not tired. But he's losing. And your ticket is about to crash and burn because he's not able to do anything because of it. Ogden is that blanket type guy that's just going to neutralize you, give you fits, give you frustrations. If he's the betting favorite, it's like, okay, he can win this fight, but not much is going to happen, and I need the judges on his side. If he's the betting underdog, yeah, he's the kind of guy that's just going to give you nightmares, man. Moises has got lots of problems, okay? First of all, and you outline this one, he's a low volume guy. So yeah, so low. So if it comes down to him and Trey Ogden, grappling and wrestling is neutral on both sides, and they stand up, well, I got a Trey Ogden that actually outstruck Daniel Zellhuber, right? I got a Trey Ogden that by the numbers lands a strike per minute more than Thiago Moises. So he could win in that scenario. Moises takes down offense, awful. 35%, okay? So him taking down Ogden, I actually don't see it. His takedown defense, meanwhile, is 55%, and that's a little bit misleading because he got taken down 5 times by Benoit Saint-Denis, and he got taken down 3 times by Islam Makhachev. But he's also been taken down by King Bobby Green twice. He got taken down by Kurt Holoba. He got taken down by Benil Dariush 4 times. Ludovic Klein in his last fight was able to take him down. So again, now I've got 2 passive victory for Trey Ogden. I think he can take down Thiago Moises, and even though Moises is a good BJJ black belt, he's not world class next level. He's gonna roll and snatch up your leg on you. He might if you're Michael Johnson, but he's not gonna do that against a guy like Trey Ogden. I don't believe. What you're gonna see is hopefully Ogden sprawl out those takedown attempts by Moises, outstrike him standing, mix in a few takedowns of his own. If he was really worried about, you know what, I don't know if I can grapple with this guy. If that was a real worry to him, what I'm saying is it seems like his ring IQ is high enough to realize that, well, I'll just take him down with a minute left in the round instead. Not shoot in the beginning and maybe get reversed, or shoot in the beginning while you're dry and get caught in something. I think that he's just going to take the smart approach. Outstrike him for the beginning, cause him to get a little bit desperate, cause him to make a mistake. Your corner yells out 45 seconds left in this round. It's a close round. The judges are thinking, geez, I don't know. This one could go either way. You land a takedown with 45 seconds left and set up shop and crack him with two little quick elbows. Well, yeah, now there's no question. You won the round. And do that again in the second round. And if you want, do it again in the third round. But if not, who cares? You already won the first two. Run away. He's not the most athletic guy. He's not the strongest guy. He doesn't got the nastiest submission game, but he's a winner. He finds ways to win. He's a smart guy. He's a thinking man's fighter. And so I got respect for that. And as an underdog, I feel like he's going to find a way to beat Thiago Moises.
It's fair. Yeah, you make a lot of good points there. I don't think I'm gonna bet this fight pre-flop, but definitely a fight that like I have a lot of interest in the live markets because, yeah, Moises' volume's just so low. I just kind of want to see how these guys like match up in the grappling exchanges, if those even happen before like pulling the trigger and actually firing some cash at that fight. Moving on down. We got Jacobe Smith taking on Preston Parsons, minus 455 for the Contenders Series alum, Jacobe Smith. Coming in on short notice here, which is a little bit of a red flag, particularly that he's a minus 455 favorite. Parsons could be out for plus 350. But, man, one of the better Contender Series prospects from this past season. There was a few pretty good ones this year. But Jacobe Smith, All-American, went 28-5 in his final year at Oklahoma State University. It's big-time college wrestling. Yeah, All-American recognition there. Went to the national championships, went 2-2. I mean, on Contender Series there, the guy's violent. He's athletic. The takedowns, obviously, with that type of pedigree in wrestling, were on point. It's 28 years old, so time is now to start, like, getting everything in order, start really pushing. Guy looks like a problem and somebody we could be watching really kind of accelerate and move up the ranks real quickly here. I've never really been a Preston Parsons guy. It's minus 455. I get it. Contender Series. Maybe his stand-up is still exploitable, but is Parsons the guy to really exploit that? I know Parsons had a lot of success in the wrestling department. There is levels to this game, Cody. And Jacobe Smith, if he wants this fight on the mat, he's going to get it there. So it's one of the big favorites, one rare situations, with me, kind of sometimes to my own detriment, a dog hunter. But Smith seems like the real deal and a guy to watch out for in 2025 to me. What's your take?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to completely agree. So the thing is that Preston Parsons himself is a wrestler. That's where he wants to take the fights, and he's had a lot of success chain wrestling guys down, taking them down, kind of breaking their wills ever so slightly as the fight kind of gets prolonged. But for the most part, it's like, yeah, he's not an elite wrestler. He's certainly not a very good striker. It's that he's in shape and he can take down lesser opponents. His fight with Evan Elder, he got 4 takedown attempts. His fight with Trevin Giles, he had taken him down 3 times. His fight with Matthew Semmelsberger, he took it down 7 times. And then he runs into Obon Elliott. Now, I bet him against Obon Elliott on the basis that you got a Welsh grappler versus an American wrestler. He's been getting many takedowns. Matthew Semmelsberger, 7 takedowns against him, a couple submission attempts thrown in the mix. Parsons is not big for the weight class, but decent enough size. He's going to be able to put that grind on him. He looked so physically outmatched against Obon Elliott. He went 1 for 9 in takedown attempts. Obon Elliott, meanwhile, went 1 for 2 and held him down for 5 minutes. But he went 1 for 9 and couldn't even get a minute of control time out of it. And again, I had him bet, so I had a very big invested interest in it. He's shooting the takedowns, he's not getting a whiff, and all of a sudden he's standing when he shouldn't, and he's getting punched up for 4 minutes, and then he's shooting the takedown. Like, just his ring IQ looked way off. His athleticism looked way off. He's just not big enough and strong enough to lean on these guys, and doesn't have the technique to cleanly just drop levels and time it and take them off their feet. So he's just going to be one of these bogs of a guy that can beat, outside of the top 25 level of competition, lean on them, hopefully go to decision. They talked about what awesome shape he was in going into the Oban Elliott fight, and he himself was very big on like this is going to be my best performance yet, and it was his worst performance yet. And that wasn't that he wasn't in shape, that wasn't that he was lying. It's that Oban Elliott's actually pretty good. So when you were fighting Evan Elder and Trevin Giles and Matthew Semmelsberger, yeah, you went 2-1 against those guys. Oban Elliott was a step up, and he looked like a step down himself. So now they got Jacoby Smith, and he is a specimen of a wrestler, as you already outlined. Guy that's wrestling at one of the best universities in the states. Yeah, just a solid pedigree of wrestling, which is the number one art. Very solid athlete. Got a winning mentality. They see him on the Contender Series. He takes on a local New Brunswick fighter from Canada by the name of Christian Savoy. Savoy got absolutely dummied. And now he doesn't have the style to do anything about it. Like, at least Preston Parsons can wrestle a little bit. At least Preston Parsons has fights in the UFC. At least Preston Parsons has a few, things kind of going in his way. Against Christian Savoy, it was just like someone playing basketball with his head. It was tough to watch, to be honest with you. They mercy killed it at one point, and we're just like, okay, enough of this. But the one takeaway from Jacoby Smith is that if there was no referee to step in there and do that for him, he was going to do it for another 35 minutes if need be. It looked like he was just one of these consummate athletes, a guy that can wrestle, and if he doesn't take you down right away off the first time, he can go back to it. He can move a little bit. He's going to have advanced footwork, even though he's a stiff wrestler, because he's an advanced athletic guy. So the pieces will start to roll together for him. If you're the UFC, you got somebody that, could be a top prospect down the road. He's a prospect now, don't get me wrong, but you win a few fights and really get people talking about you. You got to build this guy up the proper way. They didn't give him a Christian Rodriguez prospect killer type guy. They gave him Preston Parsons that largely looked outmatched physically in his last fight and got out wrestled. And now he's taking on a guy that's even more physically imposing and a better wrestler. I don't know what his path to victory is. If he's not getting his own offensive takedowns, which he's not going to, how does he win this fight? Well, he might be a better striker. Okay, well, then he'd have to keep him off of him in this scenario in order to use that striking. I don't think he's going to keep Jacoby off of him. So, again, I just feel like this is definitely his fight to win. It's a UFC debut. There's jitters. It's your undefeated record. You're not, you look great against Christian Savoy, but he's a bum. Like, I get it. There are certain things that it's like, don't go all the way in on this guy. But when you look at the tape, it's like one of these guys is going to break into the top 10 at some point in his career. Maybe not today or tomorrow or even this year. But one of these guys looks like he could be a real threat to a lot of the guys on the upper echelon of the division. And the other guy's just quite literally treading his wheels, waiting for his contract to expire so they can lowball him or send him packing. So I do have Jacoby to get the job done and probably hopefully go out there and put on a statement type performance.
Yep. All right, we got Ernesta Kareckaite taking on Nicolle Cagliari. Minus 256 for Ernesta. Nicolle can be had for plus 210. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's another women's MMA spot that it's a fairly big favorite on one side of it, but how much investment do you really want? I'm not so sure. With Ernesta Kareckaite, I'll give her one thing is that like she just throws like an absurd amount of volume. On her fight on the Contender Series, she landed 184 significant strikes, and then her last time against Dion Barbosa, she gets taken down and largely does get neutralized. She spends almost 4 minutes on her back and then eventually was able to get an offensive takedown of her own, spend another 4 minutes on the ground, let's say. But in that small period of time where she's standing up, I mean, yeah, she just throws like 6, 7, 8 punch combinations, thrown with a bunch of kicks on the end of it. Like, she's not exactly the most technical fighter going, but she's one of these tough Lithuanian fighters. Lithuania known more for their striking background. She can just throw down. When you can just be more physical, take her down, control her, out-grapple her, that would certainly be the path of victory if you're going to try to beat her. Nicolle Cagliari, when you saw her on the Contender Series against Corinne Laframboise, she has a solid submission game, right? So I wouldn't think that it's crazy that if this fight at some point does hit the ground, that maybe she might have the submission or the grappling advantage over Kareckaite. And Kareckaite would obviously have the volume advantage standing up. It just depends where this fight's going to take place. You can watch all the tape you want, but the bottom line is that you don't know what's going to happen. Someone throws a high kick and they slip off of it, or you catch something, or it's in transition and you fall over the ground. Most fights do hit the ground. Kareckaite wins this fight standing. Nicolle Cagliari probably wins this fight on the ground. Who's going to play to their hand? I'm not so sure. If it was an even money fight, though, I would take Ernesta Kareckaite simply because she does have the more experience, and it looks like she's got solid cardio. I feel like this is someone that's going to eventually break through. Maybe not break through to the upper echelon, but break through and have some sustained success and beat a couple bottom feeders of the division simply because massive pace, improving, still young, couple things going in her way. Nicole Cagliari, yeah, it's nothing, no knock against her. It's that they're both young in their careers. They both got potentially a path to victory. She's the underdog. Why not try to take a shot on the underdog? Because there's better underdogs that, for my liking on the card. You don't need to force everything just because it's a close fight or I'm not sure. Sometimes the right move is to just pass altogether. Back when the UFC used to do 10 fight offerings, you're probably going to bet the whole 10 fights. Then they started doing 12 fight offerings. This is a 14 fight offering. The vast majority of cards in 2025 are likely going to be between 12, 13, 14 fights. You don't have to bet every single spot. And this is one of those spots that I don't feel like I need to force my hand on. So I think the gun to my head pick is Ernesta, simply because we've seen more of her in the UFC. Or not hardly seen anything of her realistically. She only just has the one fight. But yeah, for some reason, I'm just feeling like she's a little more comfortable with where she's at. Hopefully keep this fight standing more often than not. Hopefully land some shots, be a little more physical, be a little faster, and get the job done. But honestly, if it sounds like I'm not making any sense right now, I feel like I'm not making any sense right now. I don't care for this fight at all.
Yeah, neither do I. Let's move on. We've got Magomed Gadzhiesulov taking on Bruno Lopez. Magomed is a minus 225 favorite. Bruno Lopez can be had for plus 185, a cool bet. I don't think Magomed Gadzhiesulov's very good, Cody. Obviously, both of these guys have a similar opponent in Brenson Ribeiro. Contender series, Bruno Lopez was a very, very sizable favorite against Brenson Ribeiro. He came in undefeated, all of that good stuff. And Brenson, looks like a terrifying individual, a little bit sloppy, but obviously has some skills. Knocked him out. It was kind of like one of the shocks of the 2023 season. Bruno Lopez went back to the regional scene, got a quick win, comes back to the Contender Series in 2024, gets the knockout, gets the win, gets a job here in the UFC. Struggles that I have with Magomed Gadzhiesulov is, one, I don't think he's all that strong. Like, I don't think he's, physically imposing. I think he's got some of the technical grappling skills, but not all that impressed. Like, the takedowns in him versus Brenson was 5-3. He won round 3 very convincingly. The first 2 rounds, very, very competitive. Takedowns weren't really as easy to come by as you would have thought on paper. Round 3, he had 4 minutes and 35 seconds of control time. My big question here with Bruno Lopez, I found a bit of an about a week ago, I found a bit of an outlier price. So I have some at plus 225 on Bruno Lopez. Not nearly enough to fill my gullet, fill my belly. But my biggest question and kind of the answer I'm looking for from you, and whether I get more involved, or maybe you're going to say that you like Magomed Gadzhiesulov here, and maybe I won't get more involved. But plus 185. My biggest question is takedown defense. Is that going to be a big problem for Bruno Lopez here? Or was his loss to Brenson Ribeiro just kind of a blip on the radar? He got caught, and you actually believe in him as a long-term prospect? Because everything else over the course of his career looks pretty good, and he's rebounded, and he's back in this spot now. So the pick for me is Bruno Lopez. The question becomes, how much money do I put on Bruno Lopez? I've got some, but I want more. Should I take more, Cody?
Yeah, I mean, there's one trend that's been really true all of 2024 and likely continues in 2025 is if the guy's last name is a O and a V, especially if he's undefeated, then you don't want to be trying to fade him. And in that regard, yeah, what's there not to like about this man, Magomed Gadzhiesulov? He's from Dagestan. He's 9-0, 31 years old, wants to just wrestle. 6 takedowns in the Contender Series, 6 takedowns in his UFC debut. You know what he's going to do. He's just going to go get takedowns and lay and pray. And that's likely a winning path to victory. However, he's so pillow-fisted. There's no power whatsoever. And I've mentioned this many times already. When you look at his regional scene record, he had finished a bunch of guys. Those guys were 0-2, 1-2, 0-3, 0-0, 2-1. That would most definitely be the best win of his career. And then he gets on Brave CF. When he fights on Brave CF against Muhammad Saeed Malam, it's the guy's 11-4. It's pretty much the first time he fights a guy with a pulse, and he can't finish him. He takes him down and lane praise him. But I mean, there's no power. There's no submission game. His very next fight, he's on the Contender Series against Jose Medina. He beats Jose Medina, took him down 6 times, landed, I think, 70 significant strikes. Dana signs the Bolivian guy, inexplicably, signs the Bolivian guy for no reason, saying, it's just something I liked about his story. And then the Bolivian kid, Medina, fights Zach Reese in his UFC debut and gets annihilated. Mm-hmm. Zach Reese absolutely beat the crap out of him. So what's Magomed really do? Well, he's from Dagestan and he can wrestle. Okay, that's fair, but the big shift that we've seen in the last 2 years is that control time doesn't necessarily outweigh damage. Sometimes it does. Just depends who the judges are for that particular fight. Mm-hmm. But you see time and time again that you can get those takedowns. You can secure some control time. You can have them down for 3.5 minutes. The second this guy gets up and starts landing some shots, it's human nature. You feel the tide turning. Oh, he's not down now. Oh, he landed a big punch. The rounds are generally dictated and won in the last minute, in the last 90 seconds. Because people always say, geez, this is a close round. Could go either way. And then someone lands that one big exclamation point shot. You know, big right hand or a big kick to the body or a quick takedown with 45 seconds left. It's what seals the deal in these rounds. So I think with Magomed, he probably does have the wrestling advantage. He does have the grappling advantage. He goes out there. He may be able to take down Bruno Lopez, but I feel like Bruno's just going to continuously, hopefully, work his way back up and then land some big shots. If he can land those big shots, then you would think that the judges are eventually going to award it to him. And that would be my biggest thing, is that you look at Bruno versus, sure, he lost as a big favorite on the Contender Series, but his last fight against that Mikhail Salaziani, right? Mm-hmm. The Salaziani guy, for the record, but he's from Georgia. He's got Merab Dvalishvili in his corner. They've done a full camp in Las Vegas preparing for this fight in Las Vegas and to wrestle. He went 0-6 against Bruno Lopez. He didn't even get close, truth be told. Now, yes, that guy was a bum. Oh my God, how'd they let him on the show? But point being is that he was still very physically strong, went 0-6 in takedowns, never caught a whiff, gassed out trying to take Lopez down, and then got knocked out. Proper win for Lopez. He would have to do something similar here. He's going to have to avoid these Magomedov takedowns early into the fight and then tire him out. As you tire him out, as you can force him to stay standing, that's when you're going to be able to bomb on him and land a little bit. So I am actually going to take Bruno Lopez, but undefeated OV fighter from Dagestan, you know me. Those are my favorites. So even though I am taking Bruno Lopez, he will probably be like the spot above the PRP pick this week, maybe on those bottom 2 lines. The confidence is not quite there as much as I do think he's a live underdog. And from what I've seen on tape and that UFC debut from the Bahrainian Russian, I don't like Magomed, and he is literally 2 bad judges away, or 2 good judges, depending on your perspective, away from losing any fight, because he's just not doing anything. It's going to leave it subjective to a lot of people. In fact, the UFC won't keep this guy around long term. If he loses to Bruno Lopez, or he beats Bruno Lopez, but he loses his next one, he's gone. And whereas there's certain guys, like, I didn't love Makayev in the beginning, but I always said, he's 21 years old. Wait until the kid's 25. Wait until the kid's 28, 29. Wait until he physically goes into the prime of his career. Yeah, this guy's 31, man. There's no defining X factor. He can crush until he was 29, and now he's trying to make up for lost time. It's not going to go well. Someone's going to catch him at some point. It's just who's it going to be? And I'm hoping it's going to be Bruno Lopez. So that will actually be the pick for me as well.
Ooh, yeah. All right, we got Fatima Klein taking on Victoria Dudakova. Biggest favorite on the card, Fatima Klein, minus 1,000. Victoria plus 650. I mean, we've been tracking Fatima Klein for a while. One of the better prospects for strawweight to kind of come around in a while. Came in on short notice against Jasmine Jesudavicius, who's obviously a very credentialed, respected flyweight. So now we get Fatima back down to her natural weight class. She trains with Aaron Blanchfield on a day-to-day basis. Former Invicta champion. Showed a lot of success. Watched a bunch of her fights over the years on Fight Network, where Cody makes his bread a lot of the times. Watching those Invicta cards, watched a bunch of hers, and it's like she's been kind of like that shining prospect that they've been kind of pushing recently. So there's no real shame in losing to Jasmine in her debut up a weight class. Jasmine's big, physical for the weight class. The problem that I run into here is minus 1,000 in a women's strawweight fight. So, I mean, Klein is going to be the pick, I guess. But like, she seems very well rounded, skilled, kind of everywhere. But you know me, minus 1,000 this division. I don't want to get Wang Kong'd here, Cody. I'm not going to let it happen. I'll pick Klein, but I can't see myself betting this number. I missed the boat. What's your take?
Yeah, sharp comparison there on the Wang Kong. Quite literally, what is the one division, not even division, the biggest upsets, you know, whether it be Maria Agapova losing to Shayna Dobson, or, yeah, of course, the last time out with Wang Kong. The big upsets tend to happen, and then always afterwards are you like, why the hell did I bet her at minus 1,000? You know, like that it just creeps into your head where you're just like, oh my god, I gotta call it like it is, and it's just a bad pick. That's essentially what it is here. Fatima Klein looks good. Excellent grappling, as you mentioned, training partner of Erin Blanchfield, you know, getting some high quality rounds in all the time. There's definitely something that you could like about her. Here's the knock. Makes her debut against Jasmine Jasudavicius, that's a really tough debut, for being honest with you. It's up a weight class. It's on short notice. It's against a girl that's quickly rising up the ranks and, you know, giving an excellent account of herself. The one knock being is that Jasmine Jasudavicius is a wrestler, but she's somebody that has no combat sports background. She went on a Tinder date with a friend of hers. Her friend was like, I don't know this guy, met him on Tinder. Would you come with me? Jazz goes with her. She meets the guy's friend, because it's a double date now, Chris Prickett, who was on the Canadian national team for wrestling. Chris Prickett is an unbelievable wrestler. He's the head coach at Niagara top team, solid wrestler. Jazz picks up wrestling in like her mid-20s. She meets this guy on a Tinder date. Her wrestling's good, and it's getting better because now she's doing it all the time. But for her to come in and take you down 4 times and hold you down for nearly 8 minutes, and you're known as some vaunted grappler, yeah, it leaves a lot, you know, open to the imagination. Judakova's not good. She's not. But if there's one thing about her is that she's kind of physically strong, and she's looking to muscle up takedowns. All of her fights has been her, you know, pretty much getting these takedowns. On the Contender Series against Maria Silva, she gets 4 takedowns, wins the fight. Terrible performance. Dana's just like, I don't know. I like her. Signs her. Her debut against Estela Nunes, it is quite possibly one of the worst takedown attempts I've ever seen in my life. But it works. Estela gets tripped up. She puts her arm to catch herself as she's falling to the ground, and her arm snaps. It's like, oh my god, Dudakova won off that single leg takedown. Oh my god. Low ankle pick, maybe? It was just god awful. Anyways, her fight with Jinyu Frey, yeah, not a very good fight, but she drops Jinyu Frey. Mm-hmm. She lands 74 significant strikes standing. She never got a takedown in that fight. Her one path of victory, her best asset is that she's fairly big for the weight class. She's able to lean on opponents and take them down. In that fight, she scores a knockdown, shows off better striking, shows off some decent volume. This is a young fighter. She's still only 25. That's getting better and making improvements. Has a base, working on her other skills to round out her game. You can't fault that. She runs into Sam Hughes, loses the fight fair. Sam Hughes is a journeyman type fighter. She gives tough rounds to a lot of girls. It's not someone you can just discredit as a bad fighter. And, yeah, she did take Sam Hughes down 3 times. Now, did she win? No. Did she leave a lot left to the imagination? Oh, yeah. But still, someone that's going to now go back to the gym, and what did I do wrong? Well, you got the 3 takedowns, but you're going to have to do some things different to maintain top control. And at what point of the round do you seek those takedowns? And Sam Hughes is a pretty good striker, so she wasn't able to use that newfound striking of hers. But against someone like Fatima Klein, why not use a little bit of striking? Why not try to outmuscle her? If Jazz, I'm not discrediting Jazz. Jazz is a beast. End up a weight class, you know, that's tough. But if Jazz can use that physicality to neutralize Fatima and take away all of her weapons from her, well, why couldn't Dudakova at least just try to pursue a similar type game plan and then mix that striking in the middle? All I'm saying is make it a live fight. Women's MMA, we've seen crazier things happen than this. Why Fatima Klein, who's 0-1 in the UFC, would be a minus 1,000 favorite over someone who's not bad, work in progress, not good. Don't get me wrong. Let's get that out of the way. Not good, but not bad, work in progress. Fatima's I think like 24. Judicaeva's 25. They're both prone to making mistakes. They're both prone to making something happen. Minus 1,000 just seems absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Now, in theory, it's so early on the card that if you were to just get stupid with it, put Klein everywhere and blow it up, then you can rebuild. But let's not make that a trend this year, you know? Let's just win the first time around. I hate rebuilding. I hate it. I'll do it because, we all love the game, but you never feel good the second time around. Or you put somebody in that you didn't have the first time around, but you now need to rely on because you're chasing value. Like, listen, we're all gamblers, so you got to be a smart gambler. Similar to how they got high ring IQ, you got to have high, bankroll management IQ and, make some certain nuances here and there. Losing all your money on Fatima Klein would be a disastrous way to start out your 2025. But yeah, I suppose in that theory, it's the second fight on the card. You would still have 12 more fights to go after her. But I'm not going to be that guy. She's not on my top ticket. She's not on my second ticket. I suppose I do play Klein at some point, but just not to the tune of a minus 1,000. Straight bets, that's off the table. Over under, don't really care to get that involved in it. Parlay, it's not adding anything to the first three lines, and then by 4 and 5 and 6, it'll find its way on, I'm sure. But again, it's not the lock of the week that I think everybody thinks it is, or not everybody thinks it is, but the people that have bet this thing up to minus 1,000 certainly think it is. She can win, she should win at minus 1,000. I want absolutely no part of it.
Sounds like we're on the same page. Yeah, it opened up. This is like the product of, it's Wednesday, January 8th when we're recording this show, and it's the line dropped on December 11th. It opened at minus 225, and then within a week it was minus 800. So, you remove the ability to bet on UFC fights from this community, and then everyone's just like, they need that extra leg, they need that extra itch, they need something to, and it's like eventually she kind of just blows out of proportion. I don't know. We'll see. Like, I'll wait for weigh-ins. I'll see what they look like standing next to each other. There's an off chance I go a little bit dog hunting on this one, but it won't be, it won't be anything crazy by any stretch of the imagination.
Wait for weigh-ins because again, Judicova's fight against Jinyu Frey, she misses weight at 115, comes in at 116.6, so that's 0.6 over. Then the UFC actually moves her to 125 to fight Melissa Gatto, but she had a medical issue, so she pulled out. Then she comes back to 115 and fights Sam Hughes. So Fatima Klein's biggest issue in her debut was like, oh, she's undersized for 125. Yeah, she's technically an inch taller than Judicaeva, but once you see them at the weigh-ins, you'll see a little more density to them. You'll see little more physicality to them. I don't doubt that Judicaeva's on her way up to 125. Fatima's on her way down from 125. Physicality still could be an issue. But the only reason we're even discussing that is at minus 1,000, you really got to figure what could possibly go wrong. And yeah, physicality and strength and a bit of a takedown game, that probably could be the only thing that goes wrong.
There's nothing
just again trying to clear out all the angles.
There's nothing Judicaeva has can do that, like, I'm sure Fatima Klein doesn't see on a day-to-day basis with Erin Blanchfield and stuff. So I totally understand why she's a favorite, and I may not bet it at all. I will wait for weigh-ins, and we'll see where the market goes over the course of the week. But if I were forced to bet this fight, like, I'm just picking who I think is going to win. No money in that. I think Fatima Klein probably wins at a pretty decent clip, like 75, 80% of the time. If you're looking at, like, value and, like, mathematical, then at that price, there's probably a little bit of meat on the bone at plus 650 for Judicaeva. But, yeah, as we were saying, like, waiting for weigh-ins doesn't... The market's already kind of decided where this is going, so no rush in enforcing anything without more information at this point. So finally, we got Narulo Aliev taking on Joe Solecki, minus 588 for Aliev, plus 425 for Solecki. And I believe Solecki was the one who stepped in.
He's on short notice, for Yanel Ashmouz.
Short notice here. It's supposed to be Yanel Ashmouz.
You snooze, you schmooze,
I
Paul.
mean, Selecki seems very one-dimensional in the world of like everyone's pretty well-rounded. I haven't seen much of a stand-up game, a striking game from him whatsoever, to be perfectly honest. If he's not able to get this fight to the ground, grab a back mount, get control, how does he win this fight, Cody? I look at it as like a decent prospect taking on someone coming in on short notice who's very limited. It's like very, very strictly a grappler, hasn't shown much, and we've seen enough of Joe Selecki at this point to like kind of know what he's all about. He needs takedowns. He needs to get to that back, and he will hold that back mount. Could he get this kid in that type of situation? I don't know. I don't. Fair being fair, I don't know quite enough about the Tajik Eagle. These Tajik kids tend to be super, super tough. Where's your mind at on this fight?
Yeah, this sounds like a trap line. It honestly looks like a trap line to me. It's the first fight of the card, whatever, rebuild. Again, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. Let's get it right the first time. So, well, what could go wrong? Well, Aliev's a minus 500 favorite. Even most places, like even worse odds than minus 500 favorite. I don't like the pricing, man. I really don't. Aliev is 24 years old. He's solid. He's the Tajik Eagle. He's very physically strong. He's got a lot of good things going his way, but he hasn't fought in 2 years, right? He's coming off a 2-year-long layoff, largely due to injuries. Debuts on the Contender Series against Josh Wick. Nice little win over a guy that pretty much never fought again. Beats Josh Wick. Goes into the Rafael Alves fight. The Rafael Alves fight, it's a bit of an interesting one here, right? He takes Rafael Alves down 3 times, and he outstrikes Alves 19-6. So nobody does anything. Aliev's on top with the takedowns, but 19 significant strikes landed through 15 minutes is not very high. And flip side of that, Alves is off his back the whole time. He only lands 6. It's not very much. But Alves is throwing up submission attempts. And he convinces one of those judges to at least score the fight a draw, which is why it's a majority decision win for Aliev. It's a boring fight. Not much is going on. But then they booked Aliev against Matus Rebecki. Aliev pulled out due to a knee injury, and then that's it. He's been off for 2 years. Not quite to the day, but like 23 months and a bit. So, yeah, he's only 24, and it's not going to matter, and he's not damaged goods, but it is still a 2-year-long layoff. He's still going to be coming for some ring rust. And Rafael Alves is an absolute wild man, a shit-eating wild man to the max. But yeah, he's not necessarily known for like a deep submission game. It's either going to be a quick submission with him, or he's looking to hit you with a scissor switch kick to the head. The guy's very explosive and right away. But I can't say that his submission game is not necessarily his bread and butter. And yet he was able to throw up a couple decent submission attempts and almost catch Naru. When you look at Aliev and you look at a lot of the guys that are from Tajikistan, the difference between them and guys from, say, Russia or even Georgia is that these Tajikistan guys are wild. Like, they go hard, and then they generally gas out. Them gassing out has kind of been something that universally they've all dealt with because they're pushing such a crazy pace. Georgian fighters are also known for poor gas tanks. Rob Davashvili being the outlier, which is why he's so special, is that you can't just muscle everything because you're that physically strong without there being a price tag associated with that. So the fact that he's 2 years removed from a fight, there's ring rust, there's a little bit of jitters, your gas tank might be taxed a little bit to begin with. On top of that, he's muscling a lot of his techniques. It's just not the best when you got a minus 500 favorite. Joe Selecki, not great, certainly not great. But if you want to make some excuses for Selecki, it's not super old by any stretch right now, and is that he does have good jiu-jitsu. And you can point out, oh, wow, this fight and that fight, but these are the facts, okay? His fight with Grant Dawson, his last time out, not great. But he has a decent first round. He throws up a solid submission attempt. He's got a guillotine choke on Grant Dawson that's like, oh my God, he's about to tap him. Dawson fights his way out of it, but at least he does show that there's some danger. And once eventually his one little trick move doesn't work, he's defensively sound enough to kind of keep out of harm's way. But he did have a solid submission attempt. Keep in mind, the loss right before that with Jakar Close, it's a bad one. He gets the takedown. He takes Jakar Close's back. Jakar Close rolls into him and lifts him up and slams him and KOs him. So it's a bad look. But again, it's like he got the takedown and he had Jakar Close's back. His fight with Grant Dawson, he has a close submission attempt. His fight with Carl Deaton, he spends like Oof, 8.5 minutes of a 9-minute fight on the guy's back before eventually catching him in the rear naked choke. There's been instances he got a win over Jim Miller. How good did that one age, right? There's been instances where he's able to just strictly use jiu-jitsu. There's no striking, there's no ground and pound, there's no, head kick to start the fight out. It's mostly just he's able to trip you up, get a takedown. As soon as he secures position, he works to your back, he neutralizes you, nothing happens. Why that becomes dangerous against Nurullo Aliev is that Aliev he figures to probably want to wrestle in this fight. If we're being honest with you, he's probably going to want to try to grab a hold of Selecki and take him down. If Selecki can hit a switch, if Selecki can roll within the scramble, if Selecki can essentially get on top when that transition occurs, it's going to be problematic. If Selecki ends up on his back, he can still throw up arm bars, he can still throw up triangles, he can try to hit a sweep. If he gets a split-second opportunity to take the back, he will take the back. And then Aliev, or Nurullo, he's just going to have to land huge ground and pound. But as you've seen from his last fight, he lands less than 20 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes. So if you're going to be a low volume guy and you're coming off a 2-year-long layoff and you're still only 24, I mean, you're young. You're a young guy prone to be making mistakes. Joe Selecki, who, he's very limited. He's a limited fighter, but he's the head coach at the Gym O in South Carolina. He's getting quality reps in. I don't think he would have just taken this fight unless, he thought he was in good shape and could go out there and perform. And he's also not taken any easy fights. Oh, well, yeah, he's taken some easy fights that he's won, I suppose. But Grant Dawson has a loss, Jakar Close, Jared Gordon. He's mixed it up with guys like Jim Miller, and then all the guys he's lost to, obviously. Listen, he's short on big wins, and yet he's fought in some decent enough guys. It's where you put Nurullo Aliev. Is Nurullo Aliev a top prospect that at 24 years old is going to break out and have this huge performance here where he ground and pounds Joe Selecki? Possibly.
Hard to say.
But it's hard to say. And at minus 500, it's a definitive price tag. It's this guy is going to just roll him up. It's, Joe Selecki personally, and he's got a bum ankle, and he's having a bad weight cut, and you're going to bet Aliev at minus 500. Like, you would have to have some inside track, because otherwise you're just throwing darts at a board. You're going out on a big assumption here. Mm-hmm. Now, Klein, the very next fight, this is the curtain jerker, the very first fight on the card. The very next one, Klein at minus 1,000. It just seems like these two fights have just, the value kind of got away from them. They were probably small pools to begin with. Somebody like Aliev, they bet him a few times. He right away jumps up to minus 400. The trend continues. Klein, she's minus 800. She's minus 900. She's minus 1,000. The trend continues. I don't know that I agree with them. And that is a reason why I'm excited to be doing more programming than just UFC events. Is there's 14 fights on this UFC card. So you don't have to just, he's a minus 500. He's a minus 1,000. Just take him. He's the best. No, take what you actually like. And then if we can go and find a play or two on the LFA that we actually like and find someone from One Championship or Fury FC or PFL or Bellator when they're on, you pick what you like, I feel like my whole life I always liked buffets, and I go and I just get it all, Paul. Most of it I don't even like. Get back, take a few sips on this soup I got, or eat a couple clams, or whatever the case may be at this all-you-can-eat buffet. You didn't really want it. You didn't really need it, but it was there.
Which
so
buffet?
You took some.
Which buffets are you going to here?
Ever since COVID, ever since COVID in Canada, buffets are like not a thing anymore. They're like they don't exist. And trust me, I love me a good
like
buffet.
The Mandarin.
Mandarin would be the only. It's the only buffet that's still around.
Yeah.
Everything else has been closed. There was a casino by my old place I used to go to all the time. They had a breakfast buffet.
Remember the Pizza Hut buffet? That was a good time.
Pizza Hut buffet. Those were all good. I don't know. They say it's like not cleanly or whatever. Denny's used to have a buffet. Not no more. Point being, because I'm getting sidetracked, I'm getting hungry, thinking about all those delicious buffet foods, is that yet now, once you're a little older and you've had, not saying I've had heart problems, but just in general, you get a little more selective where you're like, maybe I take the yogurt for dessert instead of the ice cream. Maybe I won't take 2 slices of pizza and stack them on top of the baby back ribs. I just eat the baby back ribs and maybe go back for pizza later. Who knows, Paul? Sky's the limit. You're at a buffet. But being a little more selective is probably the best way to go about it. So I think that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to bet the PRP every week. That's who I am. And I'm going to hit another one. That's what we do. But it's not like the sole focus of hitting a 12-fight card or a 14-fight card, as much as if you can hit the 4 best fights on this card, that's a quick triple up on your money. If you could add 2 more from another card, maybe add a 3rd one here, maybe all of a sudden it's a 6 or 7 or an 8-fight parlay, you're not overextending and forcing something that you didn't really like. It's like, just tailor make it to what you like the most, what you're the most comfortable with. So first show of the year, baby. You want to start out on a high note. That's the plan. That's the expectation. So now we just got to wait till Saturday and see how the dices fall.
All right. Well, Cody, even after all your buffet talk, and obviously promo code sorry, not promo code. The link is in the description. If you want more, if you want your buffet to have, more than just like the meat and potatoes, which is Dogger Pass podcast. If you want some crab legs up on that,
snow crab.
You can find out all the information in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, on Mayo Media Network, that is. But I'm gonna force you for the purposes of this show. I want the full buffet. There's meat, there's mashed potatoes, there's gravy. It's the UFC Vegas 101 PRP. Hit them with it.
First one of the year, baby. So what better time than to go 14 for 14? Let's hit it, Paul. I'm going to go with, can't lose. How are you going to lose? Ribas, number 1. Santiago Ponzinibbio. Abdul, Razak, Alhassan. Paul kind of did swing me a little bit there. I was kind of not picking on it, but I think I'll go with Abdul, Razak, Alhassan. That's dog number 1. Chris Curtis, dog number 2. Austin Bashi, Uros Medic, Jose Johnson, Ihor Potieria, dog number 4. Trey Ogden, Jacobe Smith, Ernesta Kareckaite, Bruno Lopez, dog number 5. I will take Fatima Klein. Just don't love it at -1,000, that's for sure. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of undecided on that Joe Selecki and Oliev one. Again, watch weigh-ins, but like the 2-year-long layoff, it's the second fight in the year. There's enough reason for that I don't want to get behind a -500. I really don't. But when you're talking about full card parlays, Oliev's probably on it, if we're being honest. So I got 5 underdogs. I don't need to force a Joe Selecki. But of course, if Joe Selecki wins, I'll be sitting at home saying, shit, I should have bet him. But I'll also mostly be thinking, only lost 2 tickets instead of the 10 I got bet. Right? So at least I can mitigate some of the damage, and that would be a win in itself. So just kind of like when Anthony Smith beat Vitor Petrino. I should have just ballsed up and took Anthony Smith, Paul. But the real win there was that I didn't have Vitor Petrino on many tickets, despite him being like a -600 favorite. And that's a win in itself sometimes. So what we're doing, man, survive long enough to stay in the game long enough to hit the big one. That's why we're all here, right? So let's do it. First card of 2025. Hopefully that's the one. If not, hopefully we hit that LFA on Friday or that Fury FC on Sunday. Multiple opportunities, Paul. Multiple opportunities.
Yeah, the Aliev one's tough because he hasn't fought since almost 2 years now. Almost a full 2 years. He's 24. Yeah. I mean, these last 2 years, maybe the guy is just like put in a ton of work, gotten a whole bunch better. I'd like to know what he was up to, but maybe I'll find that out over the rest of the week here. But definitely a tricky spot. I'm not a big Selecki guy, but it's probably just a straight up pass for me. But yeah, last thing, obviously, coolbet.com, promo code dog or pass if you haven't made an account over there for the Cody's PRP. They've been pretty regularly here. You'll probably see it on like Friday or Saturday. Like grabbing the top, or usually on Saturday, right? They grab like the top 2 legs from your PRP and like boost it up for you. So just another great reason to go play at coolbet.com. Stay cool, my friends. But yeah, it was fun. But good to get back in the saddle. We've got a card next week. And obviously we're over on the other channel. We're doing so much more different cards, different concepts, different ideas. But in terms of like dog or pass right here, Mayo Media Network Studios, card next week. Then there's a week off. And then I think February and March is like a card every single week. So we are ramping back up. We are ready to go in 2025 here. But that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For producer Jared and Cody Saftik, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.